And they can't get rid of the IS-4. Adelaide Action X, they're doing it. They set the trap, and it's working to an absolute T.
They are hard shots to take, but at the end of the day, it comes down to 10 shots, focus fire, and the Wolverines just outdid them on this one.
Good damage from the Scorpions, but I don't think it's enough. I think Matildas walk away with the win from here. They've got a 4-on-3. Missed the shot! Catherine, 57 HP, and Madhouse now has a corpse to play hull down behind. This is so scary. Returned and Dell are sitting ducks. Scorpions are winning this fight. They are slowly but surely getting their way back into this game. But damage ammo rank in the E100.
Oh no!
Has been completely ignored, and another fire!
Sentinels are about to be your champions of Season 5. There they go!
Well, Cthulhu, we're coming into another lovely day of tanks here, and it's the Blue Thulu Takeover. We're here this week and next week, of course. Unfortunately, Jordan, he's over in Mongolia, laying the foundations for his very own personal ivory tower. So we're going to be running through it all here. Playdate 2, Split 1, 2023. And look, last week we already got a bit of a taste of that upset medicine. We could be on the cards for another one tonight.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we've already had, like you highlighted, an absolute banger start with, Matildas kicking it off really, really well. Even Action X had a very good explosive start. Sentinels seeming to be quite par for the course in terms of their domination. They already managed to showcase a very, very dominating performance against the Wolverines previously. As for Wolverines themselves, look, there's still quite a fair bit to sort of train up on the drawing board, really.
Yeah, it's definitely setting us up for an exciting week, of course. But having a look at last week, how we kicked things off. That big upset matchup. I say upset. Realistically, we're at the start of the season. Anything can happen. But Matilda's coming out, taking down the Scorpions 3-1. Then, of course, we sort of revert back to what we've come to expect. The Sentinels locking things down, bullying the new kids on the block and the Wellington Wolverines. And then Adelaide Action X coming up big. Look, again... you could call it an upset, but realistically, Action X have taken some big names over the last 6 months when it comes to water tanks.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, Action X did definitely get quite a few really solid wins behind their belt. This one did feel slightly bittersweet given the technical issues on the side of Panthers, but hopefully things are now all fixed up. JS won't really kick or rather JS's router won't kick the bucket this time. But apart from that, look, definitely the very first one kind of caught me off guard. I went into that matchup definitely not really expecting a whole lot from Matildas, despite the fact that they have a pretty stacked roster, might I say.
Yeah, look, it's exciting times. You love to be here to start things off, and all roads leading to a rather exciting event towards the end of the split. But let's have a look at the standings and see where we find ourselves. Oh my god, shock, horror, surprise! After 1 week, of course, we've got 3 winners and 3 losers. It's pretty simple stuff at the end of the day, and it was actually pointed out to us that it is in alphabetical order as well, ironically enough, given that the round differential is all the same for everyone. So, I mean, look, Cthulhu, Adelaide Action X find themselves at the top of the table with Melbourne Matildas in second. How long, though, is that going to stay, do you reckon?
Look, I think first place will be fairly rapidly, I reckon, claimed still by Sentinels, despite us wanting the upset to happen. Seeing as, so far, I mean, at least from their week 1 performance, Sentinels managed to really do a fairly clinical job, really. And seeing as their confidence is still fairly high up there after... the interview with Wymo as well. Things are certainly panning out to be still fairly sort of self-explanatory, at least for Sentinels. The rest of the leaderboard, though, could get shaken up pretty quickly.
Now, it's a pretty irrelevant thing to look at, but we might as well do it anyway, because there are some people who are concerned about fantasy points and all the rest. But our individual performances in the All-Stars leaderboard, look, let's be honest, CJ, a standout week from the man, and it's big stuff. Excited to see Action X taking a place early.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, it's quite nuts, actually, to see 2, as a matter of fact, of Action X performers on the top 5 leaderboard, Rowandy and CJ making their way over. Rowandy being obviously of X Sentinels as well. certainly has introduced quite a nice amount of extra sort of knowledge, information, and experience to the team. The other interesting thing that is worth mentioning, Russian managed to get himself a third place despite Scorpion suffering a unfortunate loss during the week 1. So still showing that he is a very able performer on that roster and absolutely should be part of everyone's fantasy roster as well.
Honestly, the big surprise for me, there's no Whippet on the leaderboard. I got so used to it last season, just seeing Whippet. Oh, yeah, look, they may have had some rough...
Neither Whippet nor
they
Critical.
had an insanely rough season, but consistently the man was up there putting up the numbers. So we'll see if he can get himself back there for the moment, of course. But it's about tonight. Let's have a look at the schedule and figure out what matches we are going to be seeing here, because that fantasy leaderboard could change at a moment's notice, and poor Elfish could be struggling. But starting things off with the North Sydney Sentinels taking on the Melbourne Matildas, we then go local for us, Cthulhu. Wellington Wolverines taking on the Perth Panthers, and then rounding out the evening, the South Sydney Scorpions taking on Adelaide Action X. And look, let's be honest, this is a pretty stacked lineup of matches, all of them sort of having that clear line of where we expect it to go.
Absolutely. So, look, yeah, I'm thoroughly looking forward to each one of them, really, given that the North Sydney Sentinels versus Melbourne Matildas is actually going to be quite a banger matchup, because on one hand, obviously, Sentinels being the big sort of the final boss of the whole league, as a matter of fact, at the moment, whereas Matildas coming off quite hot off their first performance against the Scorpions, they actually might be able to put a dent in the performance. I still think that the overall Sentinels are going to be the ones to come out the victor here. But Matildas certainly could have quite some punch behind them. And remembering even Wymo's sort of statement as well, that there's always ends up being one team that can really outplay them. Matildas certainly are that team that could really be up to par to really be able to upset Sentinels. Whereas the Wolverines versus Panthers, look, this one is kind of a story of redemption, really.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but obviously Wellington Wolverines, the newest kids on the block, so to speak. I mean, not completely new faces in its entirety, but a new team. It's going to be interesting. But look, let's go to what really matters at the end of the day, Cthulhu. Actually, that number is wrong. That slightly hazy one in towards second. Elfish Clown is out for today. I'm in, of course. I'm actually doing better than he is. I'm not actually sporting the one. I'm pretty sure I'm at 2 at the moment. But my predictions, I do... Actually, no, that's his predictions. I predicted Action X, Cthulhu. Look, let's run us through it. Give us your justifications. Why do you think it's going to tip this way?
Well, okay, so the first one, it's sort of more so just about how dominant so far Sentinels has been. As much as I would love to see a upset upset story here for Matildas, I still think that they would be top 2, absolutely. Top 1, yeah, look, they still need to really perform a little bit more to be able to set that sort of record straight. The Wolverines versus Panthers, look, I think this one, Panthers have just in general, the sort of experience diff here compared to Wolverines, whereas you look at the majority of the Wolverines roster, majority of them mainly played around the BL rather than PL. And sort of certain things could be a little bit more problematic. Yes, you have players like AVP, like Saxon, who are the PL residents. But unfortunately, so far for Wolverines, it's been a bit of a rough gig, especially with some of their tanks picks, which I'm low-key still looking forward to seeing how will that pan out. And then Action X versus Scorpions, look, on the side of Scorpions, obviously, I love them. They can be an absolutely solid bunch and can perform up to par, up to that top 2, top 1 level. But unfortunately, after their rough start in week 1, and with the way how Action X so far been pushing it, I can't help but feel sort of more so leaning towards Action X with the way how so far fairly well organized their whole performance was.
And of course, Cthulhu, do we really want to sit here and talk about the production copium going on at the moment? I mean, look, I could understand wanting to break away from the pack and the prediction department, but desperation. Banking the Matildas versus the Sentinels. Now, look, that one is pure copium, 100%. I think the Sentinels take that any day of the week. But look, Wolverines, we have, to be fair, new roster coming into this, familiar faces, but it's that new sort of formula, new recipe coming in. That's where things could really get interesting. So look, I reckon that's probably the one that could more than likely be the upset. But yeah, Action X, I got to back them. Surely they walk away with that. But I mean, look, coming into it, what's really been sort of your standout from week one that has caught your eye in terms of players?
Look, in terms of players, quite a fair few. Well, we could, as a matter of fact, actually start with our very first matchup between the Sentinels and the Matildas for this one. Look, I mean, we got quite, well, both rosters have a fair few of the standout players on this one. Look, Cindy, Safi, Wimo, Rainbow, Dell returned Speed, with Safi and Speed being the more recent additions to the rosters. Sentinels actually got themselves now a very well-functioning, full, technically 7-player core roster that they can interchange between even the maps, between different playstyles, setups, you name it. Because before you would be looking at Sentinels, or look, this core player is out, this core player is out, or we don't know how we're gonna, how they're gonna perform. This one is fairly clean cut. Both Safi and Speed are fairly able players in terms of the playstyle. They actually line up really, really well here for the way how Sentinels really perform, and that is with organized aggression, and something that Speed has been able to show back even at the Action X days. Safi as well, having the absolutely humongous amount of experience from even the old days of World of Tanks. I reckon they absolutely have it. Whereas on the side of Matildas, look, I mean, this has been a very amusing, in a very good way, turnout for them, and I'm really looking forward to how that really performs.
Well, let's have a look at their roster as well. The Melbourne Matildas coming in hot and fast. Last year, it was kind of hard to sort of make anything of these guys. They were sort of a bit all over the place, but coming into this year, it's a fresh year, it's a fresh start. We've got some new names on the roster, but I mean, you got your old gold, your standard Whippet there, bottom right-hand side. But we're seeing a lot of these B-League players come up, find their opening here with the Matildas. And I mean, this is a huge opportunity for them to really show what they're capable of.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you're looking even at the captain of the team, Bolognese, as well. Ex-Season 3 Matildas as well, who used to play during the PL days. So, look, there's a number of players. Even Joe Torre returning back from the previous season of Matildas. So you have that sort of core 3 of PL players that are very able and happy to perform. So we're looking at a fairly well sort of organized core, and then around it you build up the, like you highlighted, some of the BL players. I mean, we having a look at, Magic Shells, Bubbles, Spencer, being able to perform. Ravioli as well had, if I remember even correctly, he had a pretty decent performance as well. So overall, look, Matildas are a roster that still sort of, I still have not fully confirmed sort of how I feel about like their positioning on the leaderboard, but off the back of their week 1 performance, this has been quite solid.
Yeah, look, it's going to be exciting to see, with this fresh start, what they can make of themselves. And our players that we definitely want to keep an eye on today, it's Big Dad himself, Wimo, coming in. and it's a name that's synonymous with the Sentinels, of course, especially over the last couple of seasons. You think Sentinels, you think Wimo immediately. The guy's constantly there putting up the numbers. And look, it's pretty impressive numbers on the whole. He's 75% battle win rate, which you take at the end of the day. It's still a win in the end anyway. And he's hitting his shots. He's hitting his shots. He's panning. He's doing everything he needs to be for this roster.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, when you have the matching accuracy per penetration as well, there's all looking very, very solid here, making sure that each and every shot counts and works out just perfectly well. What? Okay, right. Okay, it took me a moment to process what in Kentucky heck happening with Speed, but understandable. Yes, thank you for that one. But look, I gotta say, first of all, we need to highlight the fact that Rainbow is not actually on this roster for today. So it's Dell, Speed, Safi, Wimo, and Cindy going to perform. So no returned, no Rainbow, meaning that we finally get the taste of how this sort of 7-man roster actually performing. Because obviously, without Rainbow being sort of the big brains behind the team, I'm actually curious who would be the caller for this lineup, assumption being obviously Safi, but we'll have to wait and see. On the side of Matildas, though, Whip it. I mean, look, that's another thing. You've highlighted that Wimo being sort of synonymous with the name of Sentinels. Whip it would be a synonymous name for either, if remembering the old Conquerors roster, and after that, after they reformatted into Matildas, once again being the poster boy, I suppose you could call him, for the Matildas. And I mean, understandably so, the man has been putting out some damage. Unfortunately, penetration's percentage has been a little bit lacking.
I mean, that's how it all started, Cthulhu. Everything, it just started with that smile. That was it, and it was over. And I mean, the guy put up numbers, and you could just see, like, the guy is laser focused in now. Despite, the man likes to have a bit of a laugh. He likes to have a good time with himself, but he is just laser focused in. It's game time now. There is no messing around. And while he does sometimes commit to the shenanigans, he's always look. He's there. He's in the thick of it. There's a reason he was constantly up in the numbers last season when it came to the fantasy.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, Whippet can absolutely put out the numbers. And same could be said actually about Magic Shells, the one who actually managed to make it to the top 5 position after the first week of the season of PL. I'm actually quite excited. On top of it all as well, Bolognese has been so far working out really, really well for the Matildas. So it's definitely been a very much of a pleasure seeing. Now, maps-wise, Panda, I'm quite keen for this one because Sand River, look, I'm not going to lie, Sand River was a big sort of question mark back in last season. You would even remember a lot of upsets happened, a lot of unfortunate circumstances happened. In this new meta, where M454, the AMX M454, the French heavy tank that basically was the staple tank back in last season, is no more for this one and now has been replaced by a lower profile IS-7, which has actually been quite working out almost too well with how well the mobility has been increased as well.
Yeah, it's look, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, with new seasons come new changes, and obviously redefining the meta. So, look, as the weeks go on, we will start to see things sort of solidify. And there was some potentially questionable pickups yesterday in terms of tank picks. I know there was a little bit of concern watching last week and listening to the VOD again from Elfish and certain picks that were made. But I mean, look, limit testing at the start of the season is kind of standard.
Yeah, I will say though, for Matildas to win here, they need to ensure that they are winning 2-0 on Sand Rivers and pushing Prokhorovka for a win as well. Because if the tiebreaker does go into Cliff, that's basically GG. That's Sentinels being able to win it out through and through. For Sentinels, look, Sand River might be a little bit rough for them, but I reckon Prokhorovka could be a absolutely solid ground for them to make actually a 2-0 statement. So first one, I would imagine we could see, sort of like a 1-1. Ideally for Matildas, obviously, 2-0 would be best, but something that will be quite a difficult tall order for Matildas, but a breeze would be Prokhorovka.
Yeah, I'm expecting a little bit of comfort there in the map too. Honestly, I think the likelihood of Cliff is probably on the lower end. Realistically, I think the Sentinels are going to be feeling quite comfortable, but Matildas have already picked up one win this season. Who's to say that they can't do it again?
Absolutely, I'm all for it, really. As a matter of fact, because look, the way how Matilda's been performing, if they're gonna pull an upset for the top 2 teams from the last season, sign me up. Sign me up, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, look, realistically, coming into it, the odds favour the Sentinels. We've talked about this, we've done this to death, but I mean, realistically, is it 100% lockout? Is there something potential that could come through for the Matildas to potentially break this? I mean, surely it'd have to be out of Magic and Whippet that difference maker that potentially causes that upset to happen, right?
Look, to a certain degree, I still think that Whippet has been sort of given a bit more of a chill sort of position where he should be able to really, just sort of do his work, similar to how actually Dark was back at the Matildas last season. Sort of, he was given a role, he was given a job, he does that job, basically, day is over. And so I think this is where I think Whippet has been put, because we haven't really seen sort of any big performances or big flanks from him, but it has been Matilda's sort of overall being able to really switch in and out, get themselves into the fight at their own convenience rather than their opponents. And also, correction as well, on the side of Sentinels as well, Returned is actually going to be playing, so no Safi, which is, look, I kind of still was quite keen to see how would he be able to perform alongside the rest of the roster, but this sort of makes a little bit more sense where they sort of only bring in, quote unquote, only one sub.
Well, I mean, I think it was something that Elfish touched on last week, potentially some role overlaps when it comes to bringing in Safi, and I think it was Deli was talking about they sort of fill that similar role, and it could potentially cause some sort of upsets. But look, Cthulhu, from what I understand, we are moments away from getting into it. Look, I'm okay. Pink slips down. Map count. I mean, sorry, round count rather. What do you place it? Is it a clean sweep? Do Matildas get on the board? Do we go to the decider? What do you reckon?
I'm almost tempted to say that we go into tiebreaker, Panda, because if either of the teams get swooped in, say, a 3-1 or 4-0 fashion, that would be quite a big disappointment, more so towards Matildas, because now that they've set the bar fairly high, one would expect them to really perform here as well, even against Sentinels. But obviously on the side of Sentinels, if they are being pushed to tiebreaker, certain question marks will be raised here as well.
Well, we're going to jump straight on into it. We're going to get things well underway, and this is going to be good. You love it. Back here doing some tanks, the action about to pop off. Oh, we start off the rip, and already movement, action, high intensity. You love it.
High intensity, indeed. Yeah, look, looking at the lineups, though, I have been actually quite questioning some of the picks back in week 1, seeing as we had quite a solid stack of IS7s, but lack of 277s. And the difference really being is that, well, IS7's armor profile is a little bit more troll, provides a little bit more mobility, but the rounds that it shoots only limited to either AP or APCR, which will have struggles with certain armor angling, whereas 277s would have no issues whatsoever because heat being the thing as a gold rounds for that tank will allow actual bit more of a consistent penetration game. So the only difference, though, the whole armor of the 277 is a whole lot more easier to pen. Less trolliness. You can still play hold down, which could be worth, but Wymo,
you seeing what I'm seeing?
Spearheading
Cthulhu?
the push. Yes,
there is
this
about
should
to be an
interesting.
imminent fight on that K line. Oh boy, yeah, and already Wymo's spotted. He's taken some big damage, and he's well out in the open. That's not a great
Look
spot
where
to be
Whippet
in.
is. Ay. Whippet, though, had a very, very rough start against Speed, punished quite heavily, but the trade is actually coming out quite rather nicely. VZ55 versus S-Conk as well. The hull is not the most sturdiest one, so Whippet actually in his position, he can sit here and chill and enjoy his life. I mean, problem being is that the Sentinels did introduce a CS63, which in terms of the health pool is going to be lacking.
Wymo, he's looking to staunch up, it would seem. He wants to commit to this fight. Unfortunately, there's only so much he could do. Ooh, okay, that could have been fun. Potential team damage coming through. He's got Cindy on the back, Delta as well. So the line is being contested if the Matildas do overcommit. But right now, they've got the health advantage. They've got the positioning. They can look Speed's looking to collapse onto Whippet, but there's still support there. This could go horribly wrong for him.
Absolutely. Well, right now, Speed needs to go very quickly if Matildas do want to have an edge in this fight and then try to rendezvous with Joe Torre and Magic Shells. Ignite from Bolognese as well. That Speed gone and out. Goodbye. Have a good one. And all of a sudden, now there's the perfect opportunity. One, to try to maybe isolate the return at the expense of the 2 tanks that you're about to abandon at the K-line, or try to rendezvous at the K-line and actually try to battle them and get rid of those 2 IS-7s, because the moment the overpush comes into the play, this is where problems are going to start stacking up.
Oh boy, the collapse over towards the return as well. You're looking at even the rotate through from Whippet. He's looking to pinch in on the back and upset this push through the K-line, support the team. And Sentinels are just bleeding damage. They're getting shots in their own right, but they're already a player down. It's not at all going the way they expected. Joe Torre's taking big damage. 1,000 off the health pool, and Magic will finish off Cindy. Cthulhu. It's all coming together. The Melbourne Matildas in this attacking round have just pulled apart, right into Sentinels play, and Wymo is just fishing. He's looking for anything, and he's unfortunately just gonna have to reback that hook because nothing's biting at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately as well, Dell being in a S-Conk wouldn't be too mobile here either, which is a problem too.
Boy.
If there was an organized overpush, Dell would have actually been the deal breaker there. 3 versus 2 tanks, both 277s having about 10 seconds of a reload, would have been a problem to deal with as well, and Joe Torre would have not survived. Yeah, there we go. Oh my god, Joe Torre
Man just sits and accepts death. He's like, well, this is yeah, even head in hands. He's like, what? Okay, whatever. On to the next one, guys. But I mean, Matildas, way to read into the setup that Sentinels were going for. They even had the numbers on that K-line. Unfortunately, the positioning just didn't work for them. And would you believe Matildas find the first round? Do they continue? Do we see the magic of the Melbourne Matildas carry on tonight, Cthulhu?
Look, might just happen. Honestly, I will say though, I did get quite a surprise because Speed being in his position, he could have actually just sort of fallen back a little bit and would have been able to hold even from the base quite easily. Unfortunately for him, things definitely didn't pan out as much as he would have wanted it. Where really he needed to just tuck in, don't lose your HP, and basically the rest is fairly easy game. Because the moment middle collapsed, the moment Sentinels lost that control over the middle side, this is where things started compounding. This is where Return basically didn't have any support, any sort of bullet sponge basically to really play off. On the side of the K-line as well, Cindy, or not Cindy, pardon me, Dell, unfortunately, just didn't react quick enough to the rest of the push, or rather the coordination was a little bit off there for the Sentinels on that play because, like I said, if overmatch would have happened, it would have been a game of time.
Yeah, I mean, like, definitely Speed got a little bit keen. He thought he had that kill dead to rights on the Whippet, but the rotate in from Bolognese, the ignite as well. I mean, just as soon as Speed sort of realized, I think he was rather upset there. But look at it, just magic shells again. Magic shells is the return on investment for the fantasy league. It would seem. My God, 90% accuracy, 3 kills at a whopping 4k damage.
Man,
105 fantasy points.
The one time I could have actually picked him for the roster after fully realizing that he actually had a solid week 1, I decided to swap him out for a different player, and now he's putting out these sort of numbers.
I feel bad. I've got Wymo and Dell on my roster. This is not the day. I mean, to be fair, Wymo did a little bit better, but I mean,
look, hey, at least you're getting some points. I put Rainbow on my team.
Look, as they say, sucks to suck. But I think this really was sort of the catalyst for what sparked off the Matilda's success. All of a sudden, Speed finds himself well out of position. Bolognese collapses. Whippet can then get involved, and it just, it all stemmed, I think, from that. And then Sentinels just lost major control over the map.
Absolutely. The play as well on the K-line, the one thing that was almost surprising that it was those two tanks that were holding the position. Both 277 and the IS-7 don't really support great gun suppression either, so they need to fully commit to actually be able to engage. And it was quite unfortunate that that was still the case and what happened there. But look, I think for Sentinels, this was a little bit of a slip-up for now. I wouldn't really count them out just yet. Yes, once again, Sand River is a Matilda's favorite pick, and there's a reason why they picked this map specifically. And I think this is where Matildas really need to double down. They need to ensure that they're securing themselves that second point and going into Prokhorovka with that 2-round buffer for themselves. Because for them, after that, it means just one more round. That's it. GG. You get the 3-pointer. For Sentinels, they being put at that very dangerous position where they can't really afford any more sort of tomfoolery.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. And I mean, going into the second half, this Sand River has already proved to be an absolute spectacle. So I'm excited to see if Matildas can double down and make this a real possibility for themselves, because as it stands, that they're up 1-0 in round count, and from there they can look to play off the momentum. And we're right into it. Matildas on the defense this time. Sentinels have the stacked HP, and that looks a bit interesting from the Returned.
Yeah, Returned introducing the 5A. Did see the return on Prokhorovka, funnily enough, where I believe it was actually Matildas, if not Wolverines, who brought out the 5As. Funnily enough, one of the few tanks that used to be part of the old meta, but unfortunately ended up being discarded fairly quickly. Interesting to see that this time quite great focus is going to be from A to D line, rather than the K line completely abandoning the one flag. And it is going to be basically a wall versus wall kind of situation. I am, though, curious. Magic Shell's pick of the STB-1 here is still a solid one. Matter of fact, it's one of the few medium tanks that can afford actually to just set hold down for the most of it, given the turret geometry. The other thing as well, STB-1, the Japanese medium tank, does also support the heat shells as well, which would be quite beneficial here against some of the more trolly armor. Whereas on the side of Sentinels, you're looking at the lineup, it's still quite a chunky one, and you can't really completely discard it in any shape or form. Main concern, though, Ravioli's position, S-Conk, once again, not really sporting the best whole armor.
I mean, so far, it's been a reasonably passive start from the Sentinels. I mean, they're not looking to overcommit. Yeah, you can see them slowly starting to work their way over towards the 1 flag, but Old Shells as well is relocating. The only real sort of information they've got is sort of that D6 position there, player close, but it's just going to be that slow wraparound. I say slow, it's a tank, it's driving, it's still going pretty fast in the grand scheme of things, but I mean, Sentinels, they're not overcommitting. They're playing a slow game. They're trying to sort of figure out and gauge what Matildas are bringing on the defense.
Absolutely. That scout from Dell is actually going to be quite huge. Backed up by the 5A as well of the return, it is going to net a huge profit because they will know for a fact that it's only, well, either none or just one tank that will be keeping 1 flag in check. The rest of the team is still very much focused on that sort of A to D line. And this is where the 5A could actually really put a bit of a dent into the health pool of the Matildas, because the gun on it, I believe, still fires around 490, if not 500 plus damage. I don't remember the exact numbers, but that's a big spot. Unfortunately for Whippet, not landing the first shot out of the clip means only limited amount of damage. I say that, though, still somehow Dell actually takes the shot. I'm assuming that's courtesy of Magic Shells, actually.
Potentially, I mean,
that would be Magic Shells,
he's got the lineup there to support, so it's not this isolated position currently that Whippet sat in and sort of been hung out to dry. So there is support, and again, Matildas, this defense is just sort of dancing around. Again, not revealing too much, not over-positioning themselves just in case they cop a few shots, because that slow chip damage, just overexposing yourself, can really be a nail in the coffin. But right now, the double Conqueror duo of Speed and Weimar making their move up the A-line. Bubbles, he's just tucked in around that corner, around the bluff. They should be able to get up nice and close before they're revealed, and that could be hugely detrimental. Just whether or not the Matildas then turn and collapse on them, we'll have to see.
Yeah, that's going to be the big question, because Cindy is still keeping majority of that roster in check, and as well as that, yeah, Bubbles should be able to still put a shot in there to be able to at least slow down the approach, and that is exactly what could be happening here. Problem being is that, yeah, Whippet is about to be in a whole lot of problems, same as the 5A already crossing over. This is going to be the big gunfight.
Well, unfortunately for Dell, in my fantasy points, he's being ganged up on here. Magic Shells is going hunting, and unfortunately Dell is the prime target right now. Whippet keeping a decent chunk of his HP, so can still get involved, and with Bubbles backing off, he's really baited Speed up that hill, so slowly working their way through it. Magic Shells, the man is fantasy gold right now. That's his 5th kill, Cthulhu Weimar. Oh no, he's having a rough time, but has to use the repair kit, and so far this is not the ideal situation for the Sentinels once again. They're down in HP, they had the positioning, they were playing it smart, but unfortunately Dell's overcommittal has put them in a rough spot. Bubbles absolutely being smoked here, just taking shot after shot. They're gearing up the rotate to come through. This could be a 4-man bum rush from the backside of the Sentinels, which they may not be equipped to deal with.
See, the problem being right now is Speed will have the upper hand on Bubbles. The DPM is just too good from the S-Conk, and whilst, yeah, he will be still coming out with about just a K of damage, Bubbles will be going down in 1 or 2 more shots, unless a high roll happens that it is going to be a 1-shot. No, 2 shots. There we go. So Bubbles, yeah, unfortunately in his position, he is very much expendable here. So a 3-push against the Magic Shells, Bolognese, and Whippet. Whippet will be the prime target here, as he will be going down. Ravioli needs to rendezvous ASAP here, because between the 5A, IS-7, and the S-Conk, there is a DPM overmatch.
But the thing is, I mean, Bubbles wasted so much time, so if Matildas can reposition and get those shots off, Bolognese in his Super Conk is at a huge amount of trouble. But Cindy, again, it's the the health bar is just consistently dropping. Bolognese is still in. He might just be able to put the shots in to find
Cindy
the damage.
needs to go.
Ravioli, El Dente, they're isolating Cindy. He's in trouble. Bolognese again, still wasting the time. They need to finish Cindy off, but they can't. And now all guns are turned. Ravioli seems to be the target of choice. They're going to finish him off finally. A 2 versus 2. The health bar is still there for the Matildas somehow. Cthulhu, they've got the advantage, and Waima's in trouble. Ravioli's isolated his fight. The return can't support. Magic Shells is going to be able to farm up Wimo.
Oh,
they might be in trouble, but realistically, this should be all Matildas. This should be the 2-0 they're hunting for. My God, no one would have called that. No one except production. Who would have thought they were the big brains tonight, Cthulhu?
And here we were saying that it was copium all along. But yeah, look, I gotta give kudos. Matildas definitely performed excellently here, and really were able to just absolutely outclass their opponents. And perfect isolation, perfect play, speed. Unfortunately, yeah, look, him losing that much HP and committing to just getting rid of bubbles initially was a great idea, because technically you're still trading out fairly well against your opponents. You're trading out a tank, but because it is an IS-7, it still packs a lot of punch. It's still a very a dangerous tank at large. And whilst at the end of it, yeah, you're coming out with a kill, instead of being on plus, say, 2k, 1.5k, you're coming out with sub 1k HP, which later down the line for an S-Conk on the range that it was, you wouldn't be able to safely join a battle as easy as it could have been. So, look, yeah, unfortunate. I think at that point it was just more so just Matildas, the way how they've organized, the way how mobile Magic Shells has been. Basically meant that, yeah, look at this, another 4, nearly 5k.
He even went...
Magic Shells is farming.
He was 105 fantasy points in that first round. He's 136 this time around.
Jeez.
And look, I'm still getting some fantasy points. Why Mindell? Not the worst numbers. It could have been a lot worse, let's be honest. Now I'm huffing the copium. Jeez, what a turnaround. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? But, I mean, a 2-0 start. Sand River, I mean, that was a solid pick, clearly, from the Matildas to book themselves the 2-0 start. But Cthulhu, the question has to be asked. Now that we head to Proc, now that we're heading to, the North Sydney Sentinels map pick, does the momentum end here? Or can the Matildas maintain, do you reckon?
Well, I think the answer is going to lie in the first round here, Panda, because I think, obviously, for Sentinels being quite sometimes a very emotional team, I think a certain amount of frustration could be slowly creeping in there, but I wouldn't really count them out yet. Yes, Prokhorovka is absolutely their playground, and they should be able to have all the knowledge and know-how of how to really play their cards. Unfortunately, I think in terms of just specifically their matchup against Matildas, they are still having a few doubts or issues with just figuring out the general pacing here. And given that the league itself is also being a much shorter venture now, I mean, you look at that and just the way how Matildas were able to really play, even in those sort of separated squads, you could, I guess, call it, that's where the problems lie. By the way, don't do what Speed did and try to go for ramming damage as well, because, funnily enough, IS-7 would have more heft in the ramming damage rather than the S-Conk.
I mean,
so
look,
that was quite unfortunate.
I do have to say, though, despite Magic Shells again putting up magnificent numbers, I cannot help but commend Bubbles in that situation. The amount of time that he wasted drawing the attention of Speed, allowing the team to rotate in, find that pinch from the backside of the point, and then collapsing and getting those kills. Without him, that could have been a vastly different round. So instrumental, to say the least, in that second round, going the way of the Matildas. And to be fair, I'm excited to see this new era of the Matildas. Yeah, look, Dell visibly frustrated at the moment.
Yeah, look, there's definitely quite a fair bit of frustration creeping in. I would imagine, yeah, without Rainbow, things are looking a little bit more chaotic, maybe. I wouldn't be too sure. I would still be quite curious to hear from either Wymo or anyone else from that squad as to what is really happening there, because obviously this feels like Sentinels being a little bit unsure about what to really do here against Matildas. But look, Prokhorovka being now upon us, I'm thoroughly keen to see what will both teams really bring out here, because this is now a very much of a hostile territory for Matildas.
Yeah, unfortunately, it might be a case of hunting season is underway, and yeah, look, you're a duck. That's not the greatest of times, but I mean, realistically, the momentum is there. You could see Dell visibly frustrated, so there is potentially a bit of tilt coming in for the Sentinels into this map, despite it being their own pick. So we'll have to see whether or not Matildas have generated enough momentum for themselves. And, Cthulhu, we see a couple of interesting names that you wouldn't have seen last season for the Sentinels in their tank picks.
Yeah, look, I mean, replace the colors. I would say that this is a Wolverines pick if I ever seen one. A BZ75, the Stritzvan 103B, the T100 LT. Look, This definitely raises a few eyebrows, but look, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all keen to see how will that really work out, because BZ-75, it is one of those tanks that has quite a lot of potential with those jet engines as well. It allows a lot of very quick mobility to get up to certain positions. Wymo tucked in into that position will be still quite a pain to really deal with. So as long as the Matildas don't really give too much of the position, this should be still very much workable. Returned as well, in tandem with Dell, they need to be very careful how they're really playing their position, because Cindy, well, the moment there's an all-out rush and all-out sort of brawl, this could get quite problematic, but I do like what I'm seeing from Sentinels in terms of how they are covering their bases. They have quite a vast control over the map, and it will take quite a committed sort of push to actually wedge out any of those players. And yeah, that's going to be a juicy amount of damage that will be coming in for Wymo.
Lovely little angle shot, unfortunately not connecting. Yeah, the BZ-70. It always cracks me up seeing, you know, the concept of a sniper tank sitting in a bush. Very Elmer Fudd-esque, I think, more than anything. Given that it's a giant piece of machinery, but already we start to see these brawls coming together. Sentinels having lost a decent chunk of HP. Look at Speed. Ooh. He's lost almost. Well, he's getting close to a third of his health bar gone. Bolognese, at least they will start to take some names back, and they're starting to connect those shots, but just posturing around the village, a lot of chip damage going out, and Matildas seem quite happy to just sit here and fight.
Dell is currently about to start farming over the ridge, and that is exactly the play from Matildas really here, is just overpush, go into the dip, try to isolate themselves from the absolute DPM machine that is the Stridsvan 103B, try to get rid of Cindy. But right now, this is an excellent start here for Sentinels, and exactly that, to shut down the momentum. Cindy needs to go here. That next shot needs to land. Unfortunately, no, though a low roll, meaning an issue, but Cindy crippled actually with the engine being destroyed and now damaged even heavier. This is definitely a much more confident performance from Sentinels, albeit the lineup definitely left a few question marks there, I'll say this.
Oh, the spread, unfortunately, is going to be the end of Bolognese. They're very exposed right now, and Ravioli al dente not soon to follow. This is not ideal. It's not great, but we're going to Prokhorov. It was that Sentinels pick. We knew that there was going to be something saucy in the tank for them, and their defense is exactly what they want it to be. They wait for Matildas to come to them. They start farming, and Speed, is he... Okay, I thought for a moment he was going to ram again there, but no. He commits to the shot, doesn't want to play silly games at the end. And, well, Joe Tora, wow, what a shot from Wymo to finish off the round.
Yeah, look, that's one heck of a way, and yeah, that actually ended up working out pretty well. Once again, yeah, the control over the whole map really did basically forced Matildas to really just commit to one or the other unfortunate sort of position where they were sort of damned if they do, damned if they don't really. They could have really tried to sort of maybe play for a few more sort of sniping positions, but even then it was very much of a toss-up. They weren't particularly too sure about some of the positionings, and with Dell also starting to apply more pressure from behind as well at one of the back ridges, things took a turn for the worse really there for Matilda. So look, overall, whilst I am still questioning picks like the BZ and whatnot, and it was one of the picks that Tori was quite avidly bringing into the whole matchup against Sentinels, this actually worked out quite well in the Sentinels' hands.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it very much looked like Matildas played into the Sentinels' hand there. That's sort of exactly what the Sentinels wanted. They were posted up, they had the positions covered, Wymo up at his little bush, and well, the fantasy points for Magic Shells looking a little bit bleaker than the last two rounds, Cthulhu. 6.8. Unfortunately, was the primary focus in that, you know, breakout moment where Matildas tried to make the play over the train tracks. But Speed coming up big, despite some shenanigans in the first two rounds, hit some big shots.
Absolutely. So this is now the prime time for Sentinels to really catch up to Matildas. And really, well, the funny bit is that really for Sentinels, all that they are now looking towards is just a tiebreaker, meaning that, as I believe, actually, the Matildas will still be able to come out even with just a point here, even if they will end up losing, which is already quite a huge achievement for them. Whereas for Sentinels, look, Prokhorov definitely was a much better choice, but now I'm curious what they're going to bring for the defense, because, or no, not for the defense, for the offense rather, because obviously the same lineup, I'm highly dubious that will actually end up working out on the attack.
I mean, there it is. We just saw that moment where Matildas committed to the push over the train tracks. It was just Farm City. They were absolutely raking out the damage. And Magic Shell's unfortunately the first is to suffer. The Stritzvan have returned just off in the wings,
Mm.
happy to just pump the shots away. And there you go, look at Whippet, he's just, yeah, cool. Guys, can you please not? Speed finishes him off, and then Weimer's like, that was my kill, turns, hits the 180, and boom! Joe Atora, just absolutely gone.
Yeah, destroyed. And look, yeah, really, there's not much else to really say apart from the fact that what looked originally like a B-League strat ended up in the able hands actually working out pretty well for Sentinels, which I am now quite excited to see. Because look, I mean, you're looking at the tanks like the BZ as well. There's I mean, even just in general, overall, you have a lot of tanks that can fit those specific sort of niches. In this case, the BZ-75 worked out perfectly well. Now, the problem being is that when you are sort of considering the tanks for sort of those very aggro pushers, you'd still end up going for the tanks like the IS-7, like the 277, because whilst the BZ does provide that nice burst of the acceleration, unfortunately it cannot keep up the same speed right after that boost finishes. So you're dropping down from something like from 55 to just about shy of 35, I believe, kilometers per hour, which does cripple the momentum very heavily. So look, Sentinels could really just return back to the very standardized pick, and they could still make it work, whereas on the side of Matildas, they need to start inventing here.
Yeah, I mean, look, whatever it was, the Sentinels were cooking up. It looks like the recipe was exactly what they needed. Spot on Michelin star level strategies, and well, we'll see if the Matildas can have the same level of success when it comes to their own defense and on the attack. I mean, I'm seeing nothing too crazy. Actually, I say that. Look, it's not crazy. We see the Stritzvan coming out once again in the T100. The only difference is Weimer. It's not the BZ this time.
I'm more so just surprised that it's the T100 LT that is coming out for this one, because technically for this play, this is perfect, and right now, actually, Sentinels and Matildas should be able to just split the whole map in half as the railroad goes. The problem being is that right now with Wimo and Speed actually still playing very passive, this allows Sentinels, the rest of them, to actually circle around really well and set up those positions for return, set up the position for, I believe that will be Cindy as well, and for Dell to be able to basically wrap around and still be able to maybe send a couple pot shots at a couple of the players. This could be perfect, and yeah, exactly that. Whippet being spotted out first, once again, is going to be paying dividends here for Sentinels.
Yeah, in the middle of the village, he's very much a known quantity. Oh, Wimo might just be able to thread the needle again. Yeah, Whippet is just taking so much punishment in this VZ-55. My God, he might be in the bin in just a second if he's not careful. 500 HP and a dream, and he's gone. Wimo, the sniper, the man himself. It's that dad buff, man. The guy is just, he's unlocked his full mental capacity.
Absolutely. So, yeah, look, unfortunately, Whippet's position here was... it was good on paper, but it relied on the fact that there would have been no pressure from the hill, and that is exactly where Wimo was. Speed as well, being able to commit a couple extra shots. Now, Magic Shell's being spotted. Cindy should be able to have a few shots from the middle there too. So, look, there's definitely problems galore here. Ball. Look, I mean, yeah, climbing S-Conk, I can rate this, but I think this should have been preset up a little really, and given that you're already a tank down, you might want to hunker down and see if you can just set up a few of the positions where you can quickly rotate, because if Ravioli, or rather, pardon me, not Ravioli, Magic Shells actually get swarmed here, that could be problematic.
I mean, Ravioli's been spotted. Della's doing big work in the info department, trying to set things up for his team. And I mean, the Sentinels for attacking lineup are playing this quite passively, having to just send shots down range, return there in the wings in the Stritzvan 103B once again. I mean, last round on that defense, he was just pumping away. No one knew where he was from the Matildas until it was too little too late. And you could see it already. Ravioli and Joe Atora, it looks like they might be making a gambit up the mid.
Yeah, that's though not gonna actually pay dividends, because Ravioli will have his side exposed to the Stritzvan, which is gonna get bursted down pretty quickly. Dell as well, being able to just straight up just drive in onto the flag, will be forcing some sort of movement there as well. And there we go, already damage starting to fly in. Return is going to be farming up a storm here. Actually, maybe won't be able to really land any more shots, but by this point already the damage has been dealt. The capture is about to start. The Matildas are separated thoroughly here. The Sentinels, look, they will need to throw rather heavily here to be able to lose this round specifically. So we are looking at a 2-0 on the Prokhorovka for us to send over to the cliff.
Yeah, and I mean, they're splitting up the Conks and the IS-7s to try and deal with the threat. They sent players up to try and deal with Wymo, and Dell actually getting off the objective, wants to come in and farm some fantasy points for himself. I'm all for it. He's on my team. I'm happy with this right now. But it's, again, just this fighting going on. The Matildas, if they are going to make something happen here, need to isolate and find a kill, set themselves up. Magic Shell's on the hunt. Wymo's just going to dip back down to the ravine, and he's good for the moment. Everything so far is still lining up for the Sentinels.
Yeah, Sentinels really managed to set up a perfect trap here. Despite being on the attack, really, Matildas could have really played this as passively as they could with a slightly different lineup. But even then, them getting a little bit too aggressive ended up playing a very, very cruel joke on them. So the problem now being is that, well, they managed to showcase us some few really good maps, but those maps that have been concrete solidified into the sort of the meta for some of the other teams, like for Sentinels being the Prokhorovka or the Cliff, this is where they seeming to be struggling, and sort of that element of surprise is certainly being lost. So problematic to say at least with Returned as well. His position is going to be here perfect to just keep on farming up the storm. And look, whilst we already have one of the tanks down, Matildas are suffering some heavy losses, and Return should still be able to farm up just a perfect storm here.
I mean, the insane thing is, Sentinels aren't getting out of this scot-free either. They've taken some chip damage. I mean, realistically, Matildas could sort of regroup, regain, and if they get enough team shot down and find a player or two, they could turn this on its head. So it's not an impossibility, and with time ticking away like it is, Cthulhu, we're hitting that 2-minute 30 mark, there is a possibility that Matildas could potentially stall this out.
That actually could be quite the case, actually. Quite surprised that Matildas were actually able to somewhat equalize at least the general pacing, but 2 minutes remaining. Matildas are on the defense, and yeah, Dell does the perfect thing really here. Just coming back to the one flag, will just sit down, set himself up with the camo as well. LT is going to be basically just borderline invisible, and from here on out, yeah, with Stritsuan joining in, ideally you would want to rotate all your tanks and just dump in, get rid of the S-Kongs, but even then the TPM is not going to be favoring here Matildas at all, and they need to make sure that they're penning each and every one of the shots. This overdump should not happen right now. Joa Torre and the rest of the team needs to regroup first. They have just about enough time. But even then, Returned and Dell being full HP is not going to make a whole lot of difference yet. 30 seconds, that's basically GG at this point.
Well, I mean, there is a possibility. If they can start this fight, Magic Shells, Joe and Ravioli there, if they can get Bolognese in position, in fact, it looks like it might be a position swap. They need to get those reshots out. They need to get in position up over the rails, and can they do it? The brawl is coming. 13 seconds. They're winning this, Cthulhu. They just need to get the resets off, and this could be a Matildas round potentially, but it's a mad dash towards the objective. No, that camo, it might just be enough. The Stritzvan and the T100 will get it out. No resets to come through, and the Sentinels will equalize. And Cthulhu, we're going to Cliff. Would you believe it?
Well, I mean, I did call it the tiebreaker map to come around, so I mean, understandably so. But yeah, look, Sentinels played their game here absolutely spectacularly. No real mess ups here and there. Yes, it looked a little bit dangerous there for a brief moment, but even so, yeah, look, for Matildas, they got a little bit sort of split up a little bit too much, and well, the ending basically said it all. Now going on to Cliff, look, I'd still say that I think Sentinels might just be able to close it all out, which will be still an upsetting turnout for Matildas, given that they started it off so well on the Sand River. They were able to really up the ante. They were able to isolate their opponents perfectly well, but then got a bit of a taste of their own medicine back on the Prokhorovka.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Sentinels' familiarity and comfort on Proc showing there. Look, there was a possibility. It felt like for a moment the Matildas might have been able to turn it around, but by that stage, having two tanks on the hill, the time was just so rampantly running away from them. And yeah, look, you could see the desperation shots coming to try and get those resets, but it was very much, you know, a flash in the pan. You're hoping for a miracle at that stage. But yeah, the reality is, and we'll take a quick look at the numbers, and Cthulhu, Magic Shells, he's back up, but again, it's still a far cry from his first two rounds on Sand River at a 62.4. But I mean, the reality is there is still a chance that Matildas can walk away with a win here.
Look, yeah, the win could certainly be still in place here for Matildas, and they will need, well, only one round is what's separating us from either one of the teams to actually win out here. The winner takes 2 points, I believe, whilst the loser takes only 1. Not the worst, not the best situation, really, for either one of the rosters, but look, if Prokhorovka didn't really pan out as well as one would have wanted to see it, I'm not really holding my breath here for Matildas. The one thing I do want to highlight, though, for their defense, they could have really just kept it as passive as they could. Played it for the ridgelines, played it in a similar way how, even set up the position where Weimar was. Bring the IS-7 there. It perfectly fits in the similar way how the BZ did. And you would have had a phenomenal setup, forcing basically the Sentinels to make that move. The problem being is because Sentinels actually introduced the Stridsvan there and had basically free range control over the 1-2 line, meant that basically, unless they would have tried to fire, or rather battle fire with fire, and introduce a light tank plus a tank destroyer there, only then they would have been able to contest that 1-2 line. And look, at this point, we're already getting into absolute delirious levels of the theory of crafting.
Yeah, like you can sit there after the fact and break it down as much as you want in terms of what could be happening or what could happen or turn around, blah blah blah. Honestly, it's just it's a rabbit's nest of potential outcomes at the end of the day. But I mean, look, either way, it's still a point on the board, and I think it's the big takeaway from the Matildas. Bare minimum, they get a point on the leaderboard, and especially in the single round robin. Those 1-pointers can be the difference maker to making it to the top 5 and not.
Yeah. The interesting part, actually, we've just been notified as well. Matildas have the tiebreaker advantage as well here. So they are the ones to get to pick the side here. Now, this would be quite an interesting, actually, case here. Because, first of all, well, for us, first tiebreaker here in the season. Given that the first week did conclude in 3-1s all across the board. For this one, look, I'm curious. Because remembering the last season, Panda, majority of the times we would look at the statistics. Attacking side would be the one to actually be victorious. And then teams would end up picking the defense, proceed to flog out, lose, that's it, GG. So now it's up to Matildas to basically decide whether they're the ones to dictate the pace or whether they're the ones that need to receive the heat that will be coming from the Sentinels. Now, one would say that ideally for them, they would want to probably go into the attack to be able to have just sort of a very much more clean-cut sort of play where they could really introduce a lot of chaos and even, matter of fact, maybe even try to go for, say, something like a 2-flag, which is right by the water side of the cliff, and there, say, play with the hold-downs. IS-7s could absolutely allow that to happen. Problem being is that the moment Sentinels introduce this Stridsvan once again, that introduces the overmatch of the armor, you looking at the problems, and Matildas are actually choosing defense. Which, look, yeah, I mean, I could rock with it, but
the question is though, which Matildas are we going to get? Are we going to get the Sand River Matildas, which was very paced down, very methodic, just playing their game the way they wanted to, or do we get the Prokhorovka Matildas, which it felt like they were just a little bit too keen. They were a little bit too keen to get up and commit to those fights, and it forced them into these rough positions. So, honestly, it could even come down to that. But, I mean, you've got the information there, Cthulhu. Matilda's defense, Cliff, 1 round to do it. Is that what they need?
See, I'm not too sure. Because you compare the playstyle that they've employed on the Sand River, they basically played for the fact that you have those very vast positions that can separate some of the gunfights. You look at the cliff, it's a much more compact map compared to Sand River, compared to even Prokhorovka. And even with Prokhorovka, you still have to be very, very close by, really. So for cliff, look, I think it will be a very much of a coin toss. A 50-50 chance here for their success on the defense specifically. They could maybe set up, a play around the donut, play around the middle part, but the middle part will be heavily dependent on being able to establish the control over the donut. Basically, whoever wins that position will be the one to basically dictate as to who can be the victor of the matchup. Whereas on the side of Sentinels, they've played the cliff so many times together. They know ins and outs. The only team last season that was able to really outright outclass them was the AX. And even then, the rest of the teams would end up still falling to the Sentinels' pressure. So here, I think this will be almost the season-defining sort of moment, because we're still searching for the team that will be able to put an upset against the Sentinels, or whether Sentinels will just flat out be able to finish the season flawlessly. But even then, this sort of, even the win here would already be putting a dent on the reputation, because it's only a tiebreaker win. That still already puts a little bit of a dent on the overall performance. And in terms of the points, if any team does end up going full flawless, this is where things could get quite interesting, really.
Well, I mean, that's the big question, of course. You know, we've seen Sentinels and what they can do when they're in the driver's seat, when they're the ones dictating the pace, when they play their game. But it's one of those rare situations where you see the Sentinels forced onto the back foot, forced into an uncomfortable position, playing from behind. They've done a great job. They brought it back in proc. We now go to Cliff. And the question is, you know, is there still enough left in the tank to close out the series with a victory and get the win on the board? Or have Matildas done enough to shake that confidence, shake that, you know, preparedness coming into the series? Because Cthulhu, and again, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do or die, have the Sentinels got this after bringing it back on proc?
I think they do. I think this is still their comfort zone. This is where they should really be able to sort of wrap it all up with a nice bow tie at the end of it all, seeing as they managed to really come back from the rut that was the Sand River, more so as well. The fact that Sand River has not been really played too frequently as well could have possibly caught them off guard. The moment they got back to their own comfort zone, they already had everything pre-set up, prepared and ready. And I think Cliff won't really be of any difference. This is where they should be able to really just sort of close it all out, wrap it up. They only need one round, so there's no more of that pressure of, oh, we have to go through a whole slog of another 2-rounders on this map. Nice and clean up right then and there, but it also still ends up being that problem of, if they end up losing, say, one tank in the early stages, this is where problems will just basically snowball from there on out. So they get the favorable opportunity. This is their map. They've played it all. They know how to play both sides. But the issue being that it's only one round.
Oh, I think there is an even bigger issue, if I'm being honest. Cthulhu, magic shells. Let's talk about it. The man is fantasy dynamite. First 2 rounds on Sand River, 100 plus, 105, 136 fantasy points over the 2 rounds. And look, we'll forget about proc for the moment in this conversation. The guy just seems to have this factor of difference maker for the team. If he can find an opening, surely that throws Sentinels for a bit of a loop. If he can do what we've come to see him do over this, today and last week, of course, I think he'd probably be that catalyst to what could be the upset over Sentinels. Do you reckon?
He could be, but I mean, here's the interesting thing. Which tank is Magic Shells going to be? If it's STB, then it's Donut play. If it's CS63, then that's the Cliff play. Cliff will be, regardless, still going to be sort of the key position to really take control of. The rest of the team will need to heavily lean into the heavy tanks. IS-7s, maybe 1 or 2 S-Kongs to be introduced straight off the bat, though. VZ for Whippet. Look, I mean, name a more iconic duo, Whippet and the Autoloaders. As for Sentinels, okay, right. Mobility to the maximum, double CS63 for the ball, as well as that, the BZ75 for some more mobility, plus the 50B for the clip potential. Bubbles instead is actually going to be playing the CS, and I only just noticed the TVP for Whippet on middle. I don't know about that one, Chief.
Not sure, not certain, but so far it looks like both teams are getting into positions they're looking for, rather unscathed, but there is moments away from a big fight towards the Donut Cthulhu. You can see the wraparound. 4 members of the Matildas. This is the full send play. They're committing. Bolognese in trouble. The shots are ringing out. Dell in trouble as well. The 50B down immediately, and it's going to be Matildas to claim first blood. Bolognese, he's still bleeding the health. Wymo taking some big damage. It's all up in the air. If they can get Wymo out, this could be it. Bubbles, he's just coming in from the back lines. That CS, the mobility. Wymo's in trouble. The shots are on. They've isolated him now, and they can just start sending those shots down range. But the health pool for Matildas is slowly bleeding away. It's neck and neck overall. Wymo's got 32. They've completely whomped out the return. This might be the Matildas ice up that they've been looking for. Wymo's in trouble. Bubbles is still there up in his face. Somehow Cthulhu, Magic Shells, and the Matildas might just pull this one out. Who would have thought? We're all in the bin. Production is the Giga Brain, and with Rainbow just the last alive against
What
3.
is happening?
Cthulhu, the 3-2 is going to go the way of the Matildas.
I'm speechless here, Panda. This lineup should not have worked out. The way how quickly the damage flew in for okay, right, Ravioli. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Just saying. Ravioli al dente is on my fantasy team. I'll give him the pass. Oh, look, he's got the flex going as well. I'm here for it. I knew there was a reason I picked him up.
Look, I don't even know what to say really here, because I'm looking at the lineup. You're looking at Sentinels. Look, their lineup was also quite experimental. I mean, we're looking at the 50B that should have farmed. We're looking at the CSs, double CS, as a matter of fact, that should have really established the control. Those tanks have the mobility, they have the DPM. What they don't have is obviously the armor, which, well, didn't seem to really help a whole lot. The BZ, though, that still is a bit of a head scratcher to me, because it's still one of those tanks that it's not impenetrable by no means. Its turret has a huge dent, which you can pen even with standard rounds, no matter what. And picking it just for the mobility burst feels a little bit controversial, is probably the best way to really describe this. Magic Shells back on the top. Yep, look, sweet, thank you. That TVP had no right to be able to really be able to unload as much damage as it did. Whip it. Look, I mean, I salute you for the audacity, but any other scenario that should not have worked out the way how it did. And I'm almost mad that it worked out, but I'm happy that we get the upset storyline here in favor of Matildas.
There is honestly a very scary reality that I'm just now considering, Cthulhu. There is a possibility that come the end of today, production could be leading the predictions, and that is not something I ever thought I'd want to be saying or even be considering saying. But look, I'm intrigued, and I'm definitely keen to find out in the interview where did that call come from, because it was just a 4-man push through Donut. They'd obviously got the information that they wanted. They swing round, and Dell just gets absolutely mollywomped out of existence. And I mean, the confidence to play that and commit to it fully sealed the deal. It was the nail in the coffin for the Sentinels.
How Magic Shells was able to survive on 240 for just how long he... By the way, actually, no, wait. It just hit me. Return got ammo racked. That's how he died so quickly. Return got ammo racked amidst all of that push. Courtesy of that VZ, he was able to first shot to damage, second one to finish off the... or rather, well, whichever other player was able to actually connect that shot to get rid of the ammo rack. Oh.
Okay, I thought he took the tank off. He ripped it off. Ravioli al dente's cooking. He's cooking. It's in the name. Look, that was huge. I love to see that sort of play. The commit, everything sort of lining up. Honestly, you just throw everything on the line, and the Matildas, it worked for them. That's respect.
Yeah. Look, I gotta say, I'm bewildered is probably the best way to really describe this. For one, that's just the way how it was just all orchestrated. Almost feels like, at this point, like a fairy tale that just came to reality, really. The way how it was all played. The battle for the donut definitely felt amusing. Bubbles nearly, by the way, through his position where he was starting to bleed the damage whilst Wymo was still on, what, 50-something HP?
No, 37.
37, there we go. Thank you for correcting me on that one. Yeah, so, yeah, look, I gotta say, I'm still surprised by how well this all worked out. I'm keen and happy to hear from either one of the Matildas representatives about what was the play, how did they orchestrate it all, because Look, that was kudos to the whole roster. Yes, Magic Shells was at the top of the leaderboard there with the damage and the fantasy points, but that cliff goes out to the whole of the Matildas rosters. They were all together wholeheartedly. Each and every player were able to make it theirs.
Yeah, I mean, the question has been asked a couple of times over the season, what are you feeding him? And it seems that they're feeding Magic Shell's fantasy points at the moment because the guy is just absolute stocks. He's picked up Whippet's position on the fantasy leaderboard coming into this season. Look, it's interesting. You look at it, map 1 goes the way of the Matildas. Sentinels answer back with Proc. And after losing those 2 rounds on Proc the way that they did, you could justifiably make an argument for the Matildas being washed out of the series. But not to be. Look, you could understand, mentally, you've taken map 1, it looked reasonably easy. And then map 2, they really bite back because Sentinels manhandled them. Let's call a spade a spade.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But then they ice up, they come to Cliff, they win the map, they make the call. They gamble the call on the donut and come up with the winning hand. That's huge. And look, 2 points rather than just the 1 for the Matildas is going to help on the leaderboard as well.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I'm keen to hear from the Matildas and the players themselves just as to what happened really.
Oh boy, it's going to be an interesting one, and we are going to be speaking to the man, the myth, the legend, Bolognese coming in here. And look, first things first, congratulations, a wonderful series to watch, if I'm being perfectly honest. But run me through it. I want to know the donut call on Cliff. You guys commit to the full send, and it works out for you guys. What sort of instigated that?
Yeah, off the spawn, we talked real quickly about what we were going to do, and I said they've only got 2 players, like, because they had BZ and 50B. Either they're gonna send double CS hill, and the 50B or the BZ's gonna be sniping to like make their CSs win hill, or the CSs are gonna go donut. And because Whippet and the TVP spotted the TVP going to that sort of area, and we spotted the BZ at the rock super early, straight away we knew that the BZ is like. Look, it worked for them on Proc, but the BZ is, on Cliff. I didn't think the pick was very obvious pick, and obviously Sensor trying out something new. And straight away I said, as we were coming off spawn, I said if the CSs are spotted donut, that means they're only going to have probably 3 tanks there, which they actually ended up having 4 there. Didn't really matter, but we just straight pushed it straight away as soon as we spotted that CS.
Let me through actually the Prokhorovka turnout because coming on quite hot off the back of Sand River, was it sort of the expectation that Prokhorovka would be a rough map to really play against Sentinels, seeing as they had previous successes on that, or was it just more so at this point try to clear their head and try to just face it at the face value?
The attack obviously like threw us, and all credit to them, they played that position really well. Like we talked at the start of the game about where that BZ was going to be, and he was either going to be like at A0 or going to be on one line supporting a Striv and T100. We just didn't know where it is. Like, obviously, Rainbow's really good at creating strats that throw teams, and that was a throw by us. Like, we should have just done we changed our strat at last minute, and actually on both attack and defense, because we didn't know what they were doing with the BZ, Striv, and T100. And I mean, credit to them. Like, we didn't pull the wins off it. In my opinion, if we just run our original strats, and me and Whipper talked about this, we should have gone 3-1.
Now, look, there is, you look at competition like this, there is the gamble of bringing a player up from a B-League competition to an A-League competition. Talk us through, you guys have picked up Magic Shells. The guy is just absolute stocks at the moment. He's constantly putting up numbers. What's it like, bringing this fresh blood into the roster and finding the success you have?
Yeah, Magic has been an awesome pickup for us. And, so in every team, and because I've been playing competitive for such a long time now, you're going to have your 2 or 3 guys that are constantly talking. Me and Whippet are obviously the most vocal in the team. But something I harp on the team is communication. With Magic, that's the opposite. Magic is a damage dealer. He's your Russian, he's your Bales type of player for us. And he's just focusing purely on doing damage, which is great. And he's a really quiet guy, like, so it's kind of hard to hear him even talking over all of us, loud Aussies yelling at each other in Discord. So, but yeah, Magic has been really good, and shout out to Bubbles tonight as well on Sand River. He played that position IS7 really well, and he actually gave us a lot of time to actually rotate. So yeah, big shout out to Bubbles tonight.
Don't worry. I gassed the hell out of him for that. I noticed. We were paying attention. But Bolognese, look, 2 weeks, 2 victories. This one a little bit close to the line, but arguably definitely a bigger fish to fry. I'll give it to you, man. Anyone you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, look, as I said, like Magic and Bubbles tonight played really well for us, and obviously, hats off to Whippet. Whippet puts in so many hours. Like, I'm lazy. I just rock up and I just do what Whippet tells me. And Whippet's obviously calling for us this season. And I'm assisting him. So, he puts in the big hours at studying strats and making sure that we're all prepared. So yeah, big shout out to Whippet as well.
Well, look, congratulations, 2 magnificent weeks, and we look forward to seeing you in the future, mate.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Well, Cthulhu, 2 play days, and the Matildas have come up trumps on both of them. Who would have thought not only claiming the scalps of the Scorpions last week, but the Sentinels this week? Arguably the 2 top competitors in this competition. And Cthulhu, remember, it's single round robin. We are now living in a world where Matildas could be first seed going into playoffs.
Look, I gotta say this is quite an exciting opportunity of that. Look, Matildas, for what it's worth, taking names in the first 2 weeks the way how they just did, it's absolutely just stunning, I gotta say, and I'm very pleasantly surprised. And for the other case as well, Whippet, after struggling for 2 seasons, got himself as well a team that is now able to sort of back him up as well. So this has been also a great even individual story, I'd say this.
Well, after a second week of kicking butt and taking names, the Matildas walk away with a victory. The new kids there, Magic doing some big damage. But Cthulhu, we're going to throw it to a break. When we come back, we see the other new kids on the block, and the Wolverines taking on the Panthers. Can they do the same? Or will the Panthers hold off and get themselves some revenge? We'll find out after the break. See you then.
Indeed. All right, well, let's jump on the Muravanka and see how this one does shape up. Scorpions, it took them a little while to get those resets, but now that they have been able to do so, you'd think that this round might start going back in their favor, although I do wonder if maybe Aussie had to overcommit a little bit to get one of those reset shots in. The fight was looking really good for Scorpions, 408. A little bit disappointing in the end there for Magic Shells in the STB one. Doesn't quite manage to finish it off in 1, but does in 2. And that leaves Knight in a 2-on-1, and well, things are not going too well to kick things off for the Scorpions. Matildas have traded far more effectively, and Scorpions just kind of throwing that round away. Yeah, a lot of missed shots actually coming through there for Scorpions, and that is going to allow Matildas to just crunch onto Benny right here and focus him down. This is really not looking good. Benny survived on 34 HP. He's still a tank in the game. He's still a gun in the game. We talked about it last round. If Aussie survives, generally speaking, Scorpion's going to have a pretty good game, and I think you can compound that with JT and Russian as well. Favoring Scorpions so far, and they look relatively well set up to actually defend against the setup that Matildas wants to run here. The CS63 and the IS7 in on the 2 line kind of worry me a little bit for Matildas. JT has overpeaked and bled a lot of his HP though, so he will need to be careful and just kind of keep his head down for the rest of this game.
Benny needs to go here at ASAP, really. Either him or Aussie, one of them needs to die for Matildas to find success here, because yes, whilst Knight is able to trade out here and should be able to shut down Joatora, there we go.
I mean, it's obviously not going to work out favorably for Scorpions.
Still surprised that only now the push is starting to happen after Spencer already lost majority of his HP, but in comes the finisher onto Russian.
Knight could be able to sneak a shot or 2 through to Bolognese. That would be really nice, but well, I was going to say pretty much 0 chance of that if Magic Shells is face hugging him. As far as the rest of the trades are concerned, though, it's still a bit back and forth. Kind of hard to tell who's coming out ahead in this one. It's not losing too much HP, and obviously Knight's going to get finished off here in just a moment. So
this is looking real bad for Scorpions. I think this is going to be 3 points the way of Matildas. I'm not sure they can actually salvage it from here.
The ammo-racked Benny and low HP Aussie and Russian, yeah, that's basically GG here. Matildas, look, I gotta commend them. That was a excellent turnout for them.
Let's have a look though and see as we do head on to Prokhorovka to kick things off, and it is, by the looks of things, Sentinels on the defense. We've got Safi in and Speed. No Dell doing a good job of soaking up that damage. Safi's now getting involved as well. I think Safi's going to have to be the one to go up and over the top to get that reset. He does a good job of it. Won't miss that one. So that's worked out really nicely. Still shading that damage. Wymo's actually gotten the kill on the Saxon as well, and this is where the round just falls apart for Wolverines. It's now impossible for them to win without their T100 LT, without their cap pressure. Unfortunately, this comp has completely failed for Wolverines, and so they're going to have to go back to the drawing board for their proco attacks, to be honest.
Robin, big mistake that now he's spotted.
I mean, whether or not he fires, I'm pretty sure he gets spotted at some point, but you just can't afford to be there in a CS63 that's on half HP and has literally no backup at all. This is going to be the freest opening kill that Sentinels have had. The returned in just a moment. Sentinels are capping pretty quickly, and I don't know how easy it is going to be for Wolverines to get a reset. Those super conks are moving. I don't think they're going to get there.
They don't really have time unless it's like a last moment shutdown, but even then, that's basically a 2-0 at this point.
So no Dell, maybe returned is going to be the backup 50B player and gives up his CS63 to Rambo and Speed. Either way, I mean, what a start already for the Sentinels. Safi's just going to go in and dump a shot over onto Sir Robin as well, who is now down to a one-shot for the IS-7 to turn the tides, and the Wolverines are down 2 members already. Sentinels, as they always do, juggling that damage really well. Returned is 250 HP, but he's still alive, but it's at the cost of 3 tanks for the Wolverines, and so you can pretty much wrap that one up in a nice little bow.
So at this point, write it all off, back to the drawing board and see what sort of stuff you can come up with going into the next play days and try to get yourself into the playoffs, like you said.
There's no world where Sentinels is going to let this play out as just a loss by time. They're just sort of setting up all these tanks over toward the 9 line, I think, just to try to rush in on that STRV. And yeah, there you go. You've got him straight away, sending it out the front. He's got a little bit of trolley armor. Hopefully he can bounce 1 or 2 shells. Speed and return, kind of trying to keep their HP in reserve, and Wymo up over the top to try to bully Sax, and it's all happening at the same exact time. Decent focus fire there from Toddy, I would say, but
well, Kasulu, production might be on the ball when it comes to predictions, but counting, they're struggling a little bit there. We turn our attention away from marvellous Melbourne to blusty, windy Wellington. And Perth, of course, with the Wolverines taking on the Panthers. These new kids on the block. Both teams suffering losses last week, unfortunately, and some talk of potential comebacks and revenge. But there you go, the Wolverines are on your screen right now. Toddy, Flaming, Mudguard, Robin, AVP, Soltarian, and Saxon. So some mix of, old and new, some fresh faces coming in for the Wolverines, Cthulhu. But I mean, you're coming in. You're the fresh faces of the competition. Unfortunately, the likes of the Comets last season sort of set that bar a little bit high, but realistically, the expectations aren't through the roof.
Apologies for that. Mike was muted there for a moment, but I was talking about for Wolverines. Absolutely, the bar is not too high, really. They could still absolutely make work here. They are a roster that can absolutely still push through. They managed to just wrap up their arguably one of the most difficult matches that they could have had, which was against the Sentinels. So with that out of the way, they are now looking to be all good to go to basically actually have a fresh start. And against Panthers, this is a much more level playing field, though. Panthers are a PL team, whereas Wolverines, for the most of it, are comprised of the BL rosters.
Yeah, of course, there you go. The Panthers on your screen. Twit Madhouse, Bales, JS, Dastardly, Critical, and God, mate, some more familiar names to the viewers at home, especially up towards that top left-hand side in Bales and Madhouse. Madhouse, not necessarily for the best of reasons all the time. He's known for a mixture of the good and the bad, but Bales consistently a high performer in this competition.
Absolutely, yeah. Bales being that big performer on some of the medium tanks, some of the even, well, when it comes down to some of the brawls as well, he is the big performer. Same as could be said really here for Critical. I'm still quite keen to see how will he be able to fit into the roster on top of the, Twit, JS, Dastardly, God mode as well. So look, it's a roster that is going through a little bit of a rough time, I will have to say, and I think this would be the perfect opportunity really there for them to make it work. Now, looking at the lineups that could be playing, Sir Robin, Flaming, Toddy, Mudguard, and Soltarian. So this is actually looking to be a really good setup because you're looking at the general sort of setup. First of all, whole of Wolverines actually played together during the Clan Wars campaign. So they already have that pre-made sort of chemistry. That's one. Two, you have the two players that usually work on the strategy. That is Mudguard as well as Toddy, whilst Sir Robin is the team captain. And so you're looking at that. Theoretically, Wolverines should have the basically full lineup of players, sort of that core five to really play out. Whereas you're looking at the Panthers, you're looking at the introduction of God mode, you're looking at the introduction of Critical here. Look, I'm curious to see how will that really perform. Critical specifically, how would he be able to slot in, seeing as back on the Matildas, he was able to be that sort of either a singular entity or he would be a part of the whole team fight. So this gives a little bit more leeway here for the Panthers.
No Bales tonight for the Panthers, well, no, at least at this stage. And, of course, old Madhouse there, the man who either clutches up the 1 versus X situation or flips his tank off the side of Ghost Town. It's going to be interesting to see which one comes through. Himmelsdorf, Muravanka, and then Cliff, of course, as that tiebreaker. Panthers opting into Himmels, and Wolverines heading to Muravanka. What do you make of it, Cthulhu? What are your thoughts?
Thoughts are that, look, this could be quite actually an interesting lineup. Himmelsdorf with Panthers should be a fairly comfortable ground where they should be able to still put in a lot of good effort here and to be able to really shut down any momentum that Wolverines could be building up. Now, Muravanka, though, on the other hand, this is a map that, look, it has gone through a really substantial change for it, where you can actually now play both of the flanks. Both of them are very much viable, but we've seen majority of it is just as brawls towards the ABC lines, where you play at the top of the map, you play for those hills, you play for the hold down and like quick momentum. So IS-7s, IS-4s, even 277s could be of key play. Now, for Himmelsdorf, though, look, I'm quite keen to see, because we already had our first Himmelsdorf taste, and it was very heavily packed with super heavies. Mouse, E100s would be the flavor I reckon.
Well, as we head to the Dorf, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, coming from the B-League, it has a different type of approach, and as we load on into things, the Wolverines, you can see them right now, ready and ripping, looking to get into it. I mean, at the moment, I'm not seeing the double mouse setup we've seen before. Super tanky, looking to get up and block a lot of those shots. But Solitarian and the 113. So there is a couple, again, another situation where, looking back at last season, these are some of those names that you wouldn't have seen.
Definitely. I'm curious about the 113 picks as well. Those are the tanks that feel a little bit more like an echo from the past, seeing as 113s used to be also one of those sort of high mobility tanks with some great DPM. So with them being in the play more so for Panthers rather than Wolverines, I'm curious how will that really play out. Not a lot of control either here really from the Wolverines, which may end up biting back at them very quickly, because this gives a lot of the control over the map by the Panthers and allows them to really, dig in quite well. Bond equipment, as well as no bond hardening for Sir Robin, feels a bit curious. And thank you, big shout out to our wonderful observers as well. All three, Dark, 99, Destroyer, and Neptune as well, for being the big brains behind the cameras.
Well, right now you can see just Panthers working their way up the map, just trying to find any sort of opening that they can. Right now, the defense, Mudguard and the Toddy, the double mouse setup playing over towards that 2 flag right now, looking to be the unstoppable force that the Panthers meet, whether or not they, the immovable object rather. So we'll have to see. Right now, I mean, it's a decent spread from the Panthers. Looking to just gauge a bit of information. They're not overcommitting to any one position, which could punch them potentially later on.
Actually, just now, sort of like I'm realizing the full sort of gravity of the situation. Why did Sir Robin actually bring just a standard hardening, whereas bond hardening would have given him just about, I think, 3.3k, if not the 3.2k HP, which I mean, technically not as impactful, but when you're speaking about, you know, the high and low rolls of some of the tanks, it could be meaning in the late game as a matter of sort of a win and lose situation, which I mean, if you have the bond hardening, matter of fact, if you have the experimental hardening at your disposal, why not use that? But look,
well,
who am I to judge?
A couple hundred damage could be the difference between living and dying later on, if the once the fighting does break out, of course. And we are approaching the 5-minute mark. Twit, the only one to suffer any punishment so far in his IS4, has copped a shot. He's not the end of the world. It's not like he's going to be absolutely obliterated if he steps out too far. But again, in a case where that could be the difference between life and death later on, once the fighting does begin, you'd rather have a full health bar, honestly.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, the one thing that could be problematic here, Soltarian, in his position, he's very much isolated, and he will take time to rotate over to the rest of the brawl, because right now it is panning out to be that 5-line push where they completely explode, which could be it could be a huge dub and a huge win, but this would also base off the fact that how will Critical be able to play his position, because he has the flank, he has the ability to really put in some damage, put in the hurt onto the Wolverines lineup. Now, the problem being that he will have to drive into the 2 mouses, which is a huge, and I mean it, a huge bullet sponge, damage sponge here, but a full-on 3 push here coming around could still be the conclusion of the mouses here. So this is the big one. This is the time.
Yeah, we see the collapse in the position potentially for that 113 and the E100, the side of the Wolverines to collapse in, pinch from the back. Just the, I think it's JS and his 113 there that's sitting in the back trying to cut off any sort of rotates, but it's a slow push up through that 5-line Cthulhu. Finally, we start to see them push on out. They're exposed. The shots are going through. Toddy's taking some decent damage to start. He's down to 2,400. That's 1,000 off the health bar. And Panthers really starting to reconsider their approach. The objective right now is they're forced back down the 5-line. They aren't out of this just yet, but look, it's not the clean take that they were hoping for.
Absolutely. Soltarian starting to move around. We would be able to get a drop onto JS, but JS fully realizing that there could be a flank as well to come around could be meaning a lot of problem. Interesting to see that Panthers actually decided to completely pull out. Critical is about to get actually collapsed upon by the 2 mouses here, so that could mean some more problems here. Exactly that. Mudguard to lead the push, and a very excellent rotation by the Panthers to actually try to back up the S-Conk, and that will actually force the mouse to fall back here. So now 2 isolated gunfights where technically Panthers should be able to just completely overpower the mouses, and that is exactly where the push is happening, where the S-Conks, the E100 and the 113 need to make their push here as well. This is crucial to their victory here.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for the overmatch, but all of a sudden they pull back. It's just too tentative right now. Oh, that's rough for Madhouse. He's not in a good spot right now. This is starting to come apart for the Panthers. And this immovable object of the double mouse setup is there. Toddy, yes, he's taking some damage. So is Mudguard, but they're still not in the spot that they want to be. And Madhouse really can't be effective in this fight at the moment. He's doing everything that he possibly can. But the numbers, it's just being chipped away at. Panthers are bleeding life right now. Mudguard in a lot of trouble. So is Toddy. These mouses that were meant to be stopping, they're holding the line, have just copped so much punishment, Cthulhu. All of a sudden, the momentum's starting to shift. It feels like Solitarian's too deep. The 3-man push up, and it's going to be Sir Robin that actually claims first blood. God mode down on his E100. And they've got the outnumber here. They've got the overmatch in Mudguard. He's doing everything that he can to try and keep Toddy alive. He backs himself off. Sir Robin will fall, unfortunately, just threading that needle. But Solitarian, healthy as anything. Flaming as well is now joining in the fight, and the bleed starts once again for the Wolverines. 3 players remaining, unfortunately. Look, the numbers, Mason. It's all coming together. I don't think the Wolverines are going to be able to hold this one off.
Yeah, no, this all completely fell apart very quickly. Flaming, despite being a very healthy player right now, so is Soltarian. is going to be in a world of hurt here. Toddy as well is not long for living here as well. Ram comes around. The 113 is not able to really do much. Toddy falls. Flaming is about to fall 2 shots shy off the fall and won't be able to finish off Twit as well. So Twit will have the finishing damage here. Soltarian is the last man standing. Soltarian, actually, in his position, he could just try to run. Rotate around, try to maybe chip away at Madhouse, but right now, with time being of the essence, with the double cap coming around, this could still mean a lot of problems. Soltarian about to be finished off. Twitch should be able to fit in at least one more shot in there amidst all the problems. And no, actually a side scraper coming around, critical to hide. Yep, this is just a play off the back of the cap. Soltarian, well, he needs to push. He needs to play for the HP.
He needs to take out Twit. I don't even. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't even. Yeah. No. Unfortunately, the Wolverines have just missed out on this opportunity. Unless you can get a reset to come through, but the body blocks from Twit. Can Solitarian get deep enough? No, he can't. He doesn't get the reset off. This is not the ideal situation. There's a dead tank in front of Madhouse. The mouse has come back to haunt them. Cthulhu. Oh, that is absolute heartbreak for the Wolverines. And well, the Panthers will walk away with victory on Himmelsdorf to start the map off.
Oh, look, I gotta say, though, kudos to Panthers for being able to close it out the way how they did. And for Wolverines, it's a bit of a unfortunate turnout there, really. They had all the tools. Soltarian could have actually shut it all down and played for the time, is basically the case here. The moment that if he would have been able to fit in at least one of the HE shells just to reset the cap, start running away, not a single tank out of those 3 tanks would have had the mobility to actually be able to catch up to him. So that would have been the perfect situation. But unfortunately, well, for the Wolverines, that is not the case. The mouse, being the double-edged sword, being whether dead or alive, ended up being the sort of the crux of all the problems there at the end.
Well, I mean, the Mouse as a whole for that round, it didn't quite feel like they fulfilled what they needed to. They were meant to be this, immovable object stopping that push coming from down the hill, but they just soaked so much damage by the time the push on the objective actually happened that they were kind of irrelevant, if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves. And yeah, again, Solitarian, 4,200 damage, 100% accuracy, 76.9% pen rate. And it's that 76.9 that unfortunately, that's where they fell short.
Yeah, look, Soltarian did still a fairly solid job, despite Wolverines really falling there quite short in their performance. Still a little bit curious as to what happened really there between the coordination between Toddy and Mudguard, seeing as they had the position. They kudos there for Panthers to react quickly and being able to really sort of reform, or rather redirect the approach and get rid of the 2 mouses, as they were fairly isolated from the rest of the roster. So this was the perfect opportunity, and the initial damage that came out, that 1,000 damage that flew into Toddy definitely put quite a dent on the overall performance.
Yeah, look, it just sort of felt like potentially there was an opportunity for the Wolverines to do it, and then the Panthers, I think more than anything, experience was really what decided this in the end. Just Panthers having the experience, knowing exactly what to do, and having played PL last year as well, and on top of that, just the Mouse not quite finding the traction that it needed to for the defense. It was just, compounding issues, unfortunately, for the Wolverines. But again, you knew in this competition, every opportunity is a learning opportunity at the end of the day. So you take this, you move forward, and the last thing you want to do is wallow in sorrow and drag yourself down the situation. You still got at least another 3 rounds to play.
Oh, yeah. There's still quite a fair bit of opportunities to really play, but this was the opportunity that they could have really taken, where they could have really just, had the play to go their way, really. The initial damage, the initial kill towards God Mode would have been quite big. The fact that Toddy managed to survive for as long as he did was already quite a miracle in its own entirety. But, look, this definitely feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. I'll say this. For Wolverines, on the side of Panthers, look, still very well organized. They managed to really keep up their mobility. The 113s actually came in quite huge there for them to be able to afford those rotations. So overall, the plan panned out perfectly well. And I think with all of the tanks now being actually quite viable, with M454 not being the meta tank, I think actually we are upon a new era for the ANZPL.
Oh, look, it's always exciting when there's that bit of a shift up in the meta. Teams are trying to figure out what they want to do, what fits, what works, what's strong, what's not. And it just means that there's that little bit of experimentation. Teams are willing to go. And, well, Cthulhu, the Fosh B on board. We've seen it in the past. It's not like it's completely unheard of. But from my recollection, to be fair, it doesn't really stand in my memory, so obviously it wasn't that impactful.
Look, I mean, Wolverines were the ones that brought out some of the more unconventional. They would, tanks. They were the ones that brought out the BZs as well back on Cliff last week. Look, I don't know what to tell you. The E5 for Toddy, the Fosh B for Mudguard. I mean, kudos to them. I mean, it seems like their strats are good enough to the point where Sentinels even take at least parts of those strats as well in their favor. But the Fosh B will need to really come out big here, because if the Fosh B is unable to really unload the whole clip and deal the full amount of damage, this could mean problems. This, though, is just
Soltarian sitting back at the 3-point line. He's just trying to send it down range. Poor Crit just tucked into the corner. So it really is, it's a bit of a wet noodle fight across the map. But look, chip damage is being done, in fact. A couple of shots here connecting onto the Panthers. They've been dropped in terms of their overall health pool, but there's still an advantage. Again,
my God, like desperately looking to find a few more shots here and there, but he actually, matter of fact, could find the shots onto critical. I think he's just outside of the render range, and instead it's actually Mudhouse who's copying the shots here. So I hate to admit it, I think Fosh B might be somewhat working out, despite the fact that Toddy just suffered a bit of a hemorrhage in terms of the HP.
I mean, it's a 200 health game at the moment, so it's not like it's insanely spiraling out of control. The Panthers have lost some HP, but overall they're still the healthier of the two teams. I think that comes down more to the picks rather than anything. But you can see Madhouse, he's trying to move up, find a flank onto the Wolverines and support Crit in his position. Twit there as well is just sending shots. He's making noise at, Toddy, 400 HP down. And that's just going to make things that little bit harder for him to find effect throughout the remainder of the round. Cthulhu, the Panthers, again, I think this is coming down to experience. They're just biding their time. They know they've got the advantage of the clock. They don't need to force the issue.
That flank is huge from JS as well. He could really be the big linchpin here to really deal the finishing blow, because the E5 currently being fairly exposed. The moment he is able to creep up the position, say that J4 that will be, he would have the nice pixel shots, I believe, onto the E5, or at least be in the position to be able to dictate the actual pacing. Though it will end up putting him in a very dangerous position for the other S-Conks and the 277s to really put in the damage. But that's why he actually has the brains to not push there, and I would have probably pushed and died there and still molded like an idiot. So right now, Wolverines, surprisingly enough, they're the ones that are bleeding the HP, which should have been completely the polar opposite, given the positioning of the Fosh B and the sheer damage potential that it does bring.
Yeah, I mean, look, Panthers, it felt like we're gearing up for a bit of a collapse onto the three tanks down there through the middle, up that 5 line, but not for the moment. Or the E5 spotted. If they identify the fact that Toddy is in fact isolated here as the rest of those tanks have peeled off towards the 8 line, if they commit to the collapse here, there's nothing that the Wolverines can do to salvage him in his position right now. You can see it. They're going to go for the cut-up 8. They're going to try and get themselves in that position to make a gambit for the 2 flag right now. And because they may have just left Toddy out to dry.
Wait, that's perfect. They're not lit up yet. Twit will get a very nasty surprise. So is God Mode, but they will realize this in just a... Now? Wait. They didn't spot him. They don't know. No. Panda, Wolverines might have been actually what initially looked like the smoothest brain performance that they could have done. Actually, they might just be able to have the biggest brain play here. Completely outflanking the IS-4 and the E100. They might just be able to just jump on a 3-cap, but instead Sir Robin actually drops off. Forge B still has the position. Wait, they might actually be able to take full control of the D-line as well.
That's interesting. So they've only sent Soltarian onto the flag. at the moment. You got Flaming and Sir Robin looking to play the choke points up that 6-7 line. And that's, I mean, we'll see. We'll see if that's the play. If they fully committed, sent 3 onto the flag, this could potentially have been what they needed. They're trying to anticipate some sort of reproach from, the Panthers. They want to get themselves in a position to shut down the flank that is coming in imminently. But that could cost them ultimately in the end. You can see the fight starting. Toddy here, like I said, he's been left hung out to dry. He's going to go down freely to crit. I mean, unfortunately, the best that you can hope from that situation is that he's wasted a bit of time. Now we see 2 stacked on. Time is really starting to ramp up. If they get Robin in as well, this could be spiraling out of control for the Panthers, because God Mode currently might be the only player who can get positioned as threatened, especially given that Twit is now being threatened by the Fosh B.
As surprising as it is as well. 3 more shots. The Fosh B will be still able to do 1 more damage. No, just misses out on that opportunity. That would have been big if the whole clip would have went in. God Mode should be able to get the reset. He should be able to just hit even the tracks, and there it is. Reset the time. Though, 2 minutes remaining now, it will be forcing the Panthers to really start going for the push. The problem being, though, for Wolverines, they bled some damage there as well. So going into the later parts of the matchup, they will be having problems with the trades as well. Albeit it's only a 200 HP differential, it's still, nonetheless, it is going to be quite a problem and a half. Force B starting the rotation. Force B, though, does not also sport any sort of armor, so that will get chewed up very quickly here between JS and God Mode.
Oh, but crit could be the difference maker here. Look at them. They're body blocking for Flaming right now. They're all trying to get in position to allow Flaming to cap this right now, but crit coming in from the back and Twit on the flank as well. 1 shot is going to spell disaster here for the Wolverines, and they do. The reset comes through. And I think that might just be it for the Wolverines on Himmelsdorf. Their gambit does not pay off. Fosh B, 1 HP, now dead. Flaming in trouble as well. Wolverines gambled, unfortunately, in this situation. The house always wins, and they are going to bow out of Himmelsdorf, the 2-0. Luckily, though, it's not over for them. Unfortunately, this is quite a brutal learning experience.
Absolutely so. Look, I was not gonna lie, I was quite keen to see how would that really come to fruition. That Fosh B would have really had the opportunity, a huge one, to really make the difference. But unfortunately, Fosh B is one of those things that is a very unforgiving experience as well. If it works fully, it will work to absolute in spades. If you flog even just the 1 single opportunity, that is GG. And well, that is exactly seeming to be the case. That is it. That is a wrap. 2-0 for Panthers, and the second round definitely looked tenfold more convincing.
Madhouse is not a team player. He walked in, stole the kill from Crit there, even though Crit was doing all the work. But I mean, look, Himmelsdorf goes the way of the Panthers. They, again, showed the understanding of what they needed to do on the attack. They were able to counteract the play, the defense that was set up. They just dealt too much damage, ultimately. And look, I have to say, it was innovation from the Wolverines. They had it. They had a plan. They drew it up. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. Unfortunately, it just didn't work. There was, well, God Mode. He came in, got that initial reset. Crit coming in from the back with Twit as well. They found the angle at the Flaming. I wondered maybe if they'd pulled that trigger a little bit earlier, it could have been a victory. But ultimately, because of how things took, how long it took for them to get in that position, it just didn't go their way.
Yeah, look, things definitely didn't pan out as much as they would have really wanted to see. It's just the lineup didn't particularly really work. Mudguard still was able to farm up the most amount of the damage, but on the other hand, Critical is the one to be at the top of the fantasy points. Funnily enough, being the absolute fantasy farmer himself, look, understandably, he would be the one at the top of it all. But look, rough gig for Wolverines. As much as they would have wanted to see success for themselves, it just all fell apart very, very quickly. And going into Muravanka, it's not as much of a sort of unknown quantity. It's something that Panthers should be still pretty well aware about how to really approach this, how to play this, and from there on out, it should be a relatively smooth experience. The one thing that I am, though, a little bit sad, the second game in a row, Bales, the person that I've picked for the fantasy, also not playing today. So I am if I'm taking the L, it is by far one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, look, much like the Himmelsdorf for Wolverines in the bin for you. It just is the way it goes sometimes. Unfortunately, we're both probably going to be playing second fiddle to Mr. Man, Elfish Guy in the Fantasy League this week once again. Unfortunately, I picked a couple of Sentinels players and they lost. I did sub out to Robin though this week. I thought, looking at the lineup, Panthers we're probably more than likely going to roll over them, and at the moment that is the way that they're going. But I mean, look, Muravanka, they do have a chance to at least get a point on the board if they can bring out a decent Muro.
I will have to make it the problem though with Muro right now with the scoreline that it is. Wolverines don't really get the second chance anymore. Because 2-0 went in favor of the Panthers, for Wolverines it means that they lose one round. That's it. That's all their chances for any points whatsoever, really. Whereas for Panthers, they get to breathe easy a little bit. They now generated themselves a nice buffer of the rounds, and it will take a full lost map to push them to the tiebreaker. Which, look, Cliff should still be fairly in their hands, but Panthers, they need to really make sure that they're cleaning up their act against the Wolverines. It still looked a little bit dicey in the first round, but second round definitely looked a whole lot more promising. Now going for Muro, look, I think this still should be a fairly one-sided venture, seeing as how Panthers were just able to really play for the late game and to be able to just out-rotate their opponents.
Yeah, I mean, look, on paper, it is kind of signed, sealed, delivered. You know what to expect coming into this matchup. We've seen the Panthers play before. And, I mean, look, again, you take the good with the bad, and the Wolverines, I think they take this as it is, which is a learning experience for them here in the first split of the year. Look to the future and implementing those lessons later on. But right now we jump on into it. Muravanka on the cards. Panthers start on the attack. And so far for them, it's a pretty stock standard roster. The Mal's coming out again for Toddy. What do you reckon?
Oh, look, I mean, Toddy on Mouse on Muro just feels a little bit wrong. Same as Mudguard just taking so much damage already. Meaning that, yeah, that is a hefty commitment for the Magic Forest here. I'll have to say that, Panda. Generally speaking, you would have only one scout, just very, very sort of on the outer bounds of the forest to just scout out, bail out, and then, well, start playing a very passive game for the 2 flag. Here, though, we get a full demonstration as to what happens when you introduce the heavy contention for the forest rather than the 1 to 3 line. And yeah, look, I'm not too sure yet what to make of this whole conundrum, which is basically the only way to really describe this.
I mean, you look at it, the Panthers are just slowly working their way up towards that 2 flag at the moment. Wow. So Robin just instantly demolished. There was no second chances for him there. And I think that is, again, the domino effect coming into play. Mudguard can hide in that bush all that he wants. They're a player down. He sends a shot. Looking at JS, trying to shut him down, but he's been spotted. And again, the team shots comes through perfectly, and another player off the board with minimal damage being suffered by the Panthers. This is looking like it is going to be that 3-0 to start off Muro.
Yeah, look, rough gig here for Wolverines. Completely lost out, completely cut out from any reinforcements. If it would have been a full commit with 5 players, maybe it would have been a different scenario. But yeah, this once again shows why you don't really usually commit too much to the Magic Forest, because any retreats will be basically meaning the end. GG, well played, and nothing much else. Robin and Mudguard would be the perfect examples of those scenarios. Toddy, once again, being very much exposed to Madhouse, and the rest of the team will be punished heavily there. And one more shot. Madhouse just, look, yeah. Well, we'll chalk it to RNG there. With the rest of the team, though, they should be able to wrap it all up. There's not much else really to mention, apart from the fact that, well, should have went for the 1 flag contention and held off a passive play for around the H3, G3 to be able to afford to keep majority of your tanks. And, well, yeah, from there on, it was all sort of very much of a snowball effect against Wolverines.
Yeah, and Flaming 91 HP, it's soon to be 0, and it's Solterian alone. Not a single casualty on the side of the Panthers yet, and likely won't be a single casualty at all here to start Muravanka off, and it will be that 3-0. Panthers, yeah, I think you coming into this week, they were looking for a bit of revenge, and this is exactly what they've gotten.
Basically so. Really, this was an attempt, whether it was, well, a bad or a good attempt, well, the results are on everyone's screen, really. For Solterian, look, this is the last-ditch effort to try to maybe farm up a couple more shots of damage, but that is all that there is to it. Panthers do claim themselves the three-pointer. They are happy. They're back on the play after an upsetting week 1. This is a much-needed breath of fresh air for them after what was the only way to really describe this is suffocation back on week 1.
Yeah, look, the Wolverines, a lot of stoicism there on their faces after that loss. I mean, look, they do have the chance of a bit of redemption here, a bit of payback in that final round of Muro. But I mean, ultimately, Panthers came in with an agenda. They've met that agenda. They're happy as Larry to do whatever they need to in this final round. And ultimately, it was always about getting points on the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all about the points. This is all about getting those clean wins. At this point, well, for Panthers, they would still ideally would want to wrap it up into a nice bow tie, just wrap it all and make it so that it's a 4-0. So that, say, if it does come down to a round differential in case of a tiebreaker, they would have at least some form of advantage here. To wrap it up in a 4-0 would be good. Whereas on the side of Wolverines, look, the last round would be the sort of the wild attempt time. We've seen that even against Sentinels, where they brought out some of the more questionable choices for the map, like Cliff. This one would be, look, less experimental, I would imagine, just purely because of the map. But wouldn't be surprised if we get to see some of the more, not outdated, but less frequently picked tanks to be introduced by Wolverines, seeing as they're the pioneers of some of the more unusual picks.
No, I mean, that's it. You're done. They're basically, you've got one round to play, because that's how it works. Limit test. Try and figure out what you could do next week to try and upset some of these, PL teams that have been here for a little bit longer. Honestly, I'm here for it. Innovation, invention. We do see a decent amount of it in the B League. Obviously, Monday is going to be another interesting time to see what teams are bringing out. It's always good fun over there in the B League, but I mean, use the opportunities presented to you. You've got nothing to lose here by innovating, trying something a little bit different here in the final round of the matchup. And if you can deal a blow to the Panthers, even if it's just taking that round off, that could ultimately cost them later on.
Quite possibly. Look, I mean, still, I think in the long run, one would want to see just more points, just in general, rather than sort of play towards the the round differential and all of the extra intricacies. But yeah, look, for Wolverines, I think the one thing that we can confirm is sort of the bar, once again, is not set too high at this point. For Wolverines, given just how short the regular season is as well, they could instead turn their eye to playing the spoiler.
That's it.
Yeah, whilst the top, say, 3 position is still something that probably not going to really happen, we could still see them, by the way, in the playoffs, where they could still absolutely push this, seeing as I believe it was, 4 teams to go into the playoffs, I believe. So
they could, it was top 5, wasn't it?
Could be top 5, yeah. I might be wrong here as well. So they still have the opportunity to make it into the playoffs, but it is more so about as well playing the spoiler, being able to shut down some of the teams from making to some of the higher positions before the playoffs. Could really mean that they could play a key role in deciding as to who will be the winner of this season, and basically being a part of the script writing team.
Well, I mean, the thing is, every good story has a good villain, and Wolverines could set themselves up to be the villains of this PL split story. And, well, we're going to jump on into the final round of this matchup. Cthulhu, the Panthers 3-0. So regardless of the result, they are walking away with the victory tonight. But the Wolverines, like you said, opportunity to play spoiler, and damage the mental at the very minimum if possible.
Certainly be the case here. Look, once again, introduction of the Batchat plus the T100 LT is, look, I mean, once again, commendable reasoning for some of those picks, but full spot, which is quite interesting, courtesy of Mudguard and Toddy as well on T100 LT. Toddy, look, the moment he realizes that they are not intending to stop anytime soon, yeah, he needs to dip out of there as quickly as possible. That CS is about to spot him. Won't really be able to put in a single shot of damage, but that is early information, and information sometimes can be the key factor here. So once again, we get what I'd like to call the pubby special, because you get on when you play the pubs, the random battles on whether it's HK or ANZ, and you get the Muro, you will see a good bulk of teams go to these very specific 2 hills, play from there, play peekaboo, and then whoever goes for the more audacious play gets the win, basically. And that is exactly what seems to be the case. The one thing that you're missing from the authentic experience is obviously the double or triple RD, which, thank God, that is not the case here.
That plus the pings as to why you didn't help that one dude that was out in the open on his own.
Yeah, the aggressive pinging. Yeah, true.
So not quite the pubby special. And obviously there isn't, 2 tanks already dead, which, again, good start. That's exactly what you want in the situation in the Premier League. But, I mean, the Panthers are just, again, not overcommitting. They know full well they've got the win in the bag, but they are playing their game. They're playing it smart, and they're not losing that discipline, and there you go. I say that, and they go for that full commit. 3 players up the mid, looking to hunt down, and Cretty's managed to just weasel his way into the back line, so it's a 4-on-3. The overmatch is there. The Wolverines are just being pelted with damage to Altarian, getting rammed there by Twit. Crit's actually going to steal that kill away. Justifiably, given that Madhouse stole one of his earlier. Madhouse, speaking of, is off on his own with Mudguard and Toddy, just playing. Toddy has to be careful, though, given that, in the T100 LT, he's got the same constitution as a wet paper towel. But they get the damage out. They're pumping away at a Madhouse, still holding on for the moment. Toddy, he's just dancing around. He's losing so much HP. It's Sir Robin now versus 4. Brave Sir Robin. Unfortunately, there's not much you can do. And now, look, the 2 lighter tanks are coming in to get involved. And, well, Toddy's dead. Now it's just Mudguard and Robin. Cthulhu, a 4-0 for the Panthers here in their Week 2 series.
Indeed it is. 4-0. Nice and clean performance here by Panthers, really cleaning up their act. But, yeah, look, that's basically it. That's GG. Wolverines, unfortunately, 2nd week in a row, unable to get any traction for themselves, which is quite rather unfortunate for them. Very fortunate though for Panthers, they're able to just wrap it up with a clean performance, sort of discard week 1 and say, okay, well, now that we finally actually back into the swing of things, back into the play, GS's modern, or rather router, is not deciding to, walk away into complete outer realm. We're good. We're happy. So this is now basically showcasing where Panthers could really be performing, where they are able to really play, adapt. And that is something that I think will be the big talking point throughout the majority of the season, is their ability to make those quick rotations. Because whether it was Himmelsdorf or Muravanka, they were able to really very quickly adapt on the go, in a very snappy manner as well. Just make the move, adjust to it, and full send it. Commit to it. No commitment issues whatsoever, which is perfect here for Panthers. Whereas for Wellington Wolverines, look, unfortunately for them, back again to the drawing board, but yet again, they had a good idea on the Himmels. Muro, though, might be worth to keep it in the ban phase.
Yeah, look, again, I think it's a case of every week is just a learning experience for the Wolverines. Best case scenario, they walk away with points on the board. Worst case scenario, look, they just take it as a learning opportunity for the Panthers. We knew their agenda coming into this. I mean, losing last week was a rough result for them. They were looking to bounce back. They wanted to win. Ultimately, Wolverines is the newest, team in the competition. Were going to be, a bit of a target here, obviously. Panthers, and to be fair, look, you got to respect the fact that there was no shenanigans in that final round. It was just business as usual. They played their game. They did exactly what they needed to do. They didn't get ahead of themselves. So I think, Panthers definitely looking to refocus after a rough week 1.
Absolutely so. And I mean, you're looking at the fantasy. I'm still bewildered that I ended up picking Bales, and out of all the weeks, it's with him out, it's critical that is putting out the numbers. But look, clinical performance by Panthers. They did all in a very clean clean way, and really not much else to really be said for Wolverines back to the drawing board. As much as I would have really wished to see them really pull off, a big comeback, at this point, it's just more so. I think the storylines will be how wild can some of these strats be. We already got to see the E5 plus the Fosh on the Himmels. Where else can we go with all of this is basically the question.
Yeah, I mean, Crit he just worked his way around that flank, came in from the back end. I think he almost snuck up the coast in that O-line, and really was just an upsetting factor to whatever it was that the Wolverines were trying to do here. And unfortunately, I think more or less this would be the expectation coming into each week. Wolverines will be the underdog team for all of their matchups this split. So potentially got to lean into that and innovate. Like you said, they're bringing the Fosh B, bringing a couple of those off picks. We did see, I mean, look, there was moments of success there, let's be honest. On their attack on Himmelsdorf, it looked like that plan might have come together to success. Unfortunately, it didn't at the end. Ultimately, we saw that play out. But eventually, something has to stick for them. Something has to land, and they have to find some success somewhere.
Absolutely so. Yeah, look, I'm just more so curious as to what now will be brought out by Wolverines because, first 2 weeks definitely were quite upsetting turnout for them. I'm curious as to who will be their opponents in the next week because this could really dictate as to how wild some of the strats could be. But the other part is, well, which team will be able to adapt their strats as well in their own approach? I mean, shout out to Sentinels, though. They managed to make those BZ picks mostly work, especially in Prokhorovka, as well as the T100 LT plus the Stritswan, bringing out what feels like just, once again, an outcry from the past, but they made it work pretty well on that map. Look, suppose we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, look, the unfortunate nature of the position Wolverines now find themselves in is opportunities are now becoming more and more limited to get those points that they need to get themselves towards the playoffs and obviously make whatever run they possibly can there. So, like you said, I think ultimately the end goal for this split will be the Wolverines playing spoiler, trying to upset where they can. But Cthulhu, I've got confirmation, dastardly. He's coming in for a bit of a chat with us. We're going to look and try and pick the brain of the man. Dastardly, welcome on into the DV booth. Look, run it through me. You guys have a rough week one. I mean, it looked like you guys came into week two with a game plan.
Yeah, definitely did. Run through a lot of stuff because, last week was in shambles. Cleared everything up, picked some maps that we were good with, and just ran it this week. Everything was clean.
Fair enough. Yeah, look, run me through Himmels, because at least the first round definitely looked ever so slightly dicey when it got to the to the late game, where the health pool was starting to still stay sort of fairly equal. Tori was still somehow staying alive for quite a while to be able to put out a couple more shots. How was it in the Panthers camp in terms of just how the comms were? Was it still sort of easy boys, we still cruising, or was there a few moments of doubt?
I wouldn't necessarily say doubt, but it does get a little bit stressful. I mean, the mouse HP is always just annoying to burrow through, and then once you're trying to get in that late stage where they actually spread themselves out a fair bit, made it a bit interesting towards the end. It's a few words get thrown, but I mean it's still kept it fairly concise. And I mean, would have been nice to finish with a bit more HP, but we'll take a win.
And I mean, look, you've had your first two matches of the season. Obviously, now in the single round robin format, you're looking at the remaining opponents for you guys. Obviously, there's probably going to be a lot of hard work coming your way. I mean, how confident are you guys feeling with the change from the double to single round robin?
It's definitely going to be tough. I mean, looking at the other teams, there's still a massive hill to climb, but I mean, I'd still be confident finishing at least somewhere close to the top, but not going to count me chickens before they hatch. So we'll see where we go.
One more question for me as well, Dastardly. With Crit's introduction to your roster, and he seems, at least on the viewership side, he seems to have slotted in pretty well. How was it for the roster to actually, get to work with him, seeing as Panthers historically didn't really go through a lot of too many, large changes in terms of the roster?
Yeah, I mean, I had plenty of experience with most of us playing with Crit outside of the league, but I mean, bring him in. He's, he fits the role that we need him exactly to be in. He's, concise with his comms. I mean, you can look at the damage and his pen rates over the last couple of games. He puts in work. I mean, he gets it. He does a good job. Nothing really to complain about, honestly.
Other than Madhouse, of course, stealing his kills. But look, Dastardly, we'll give it over to you, mate. Anyone you'd like to shout out before we let you head off?
No. JS is probably going to get mad at me if I start doing shout-outs.
Oh.
All right, we'll leave it at that. I know exactly where that was headed.
Just kick his
Dastardly,
router.
thanks for joining us. We'll let you head off and celebrate with the lads.
Oh, good. Cheers, guys.
Oh, Cthulhu, look, yeah, enough of the shenanigans. We can't let these Panther boys be running amok like that. But look, again, I've stated it a couple of times now. Panthers came in with an agenda. They stuck to it. They didn't deviate. They didn't get silly. They didn't let things get out of hand. And you even saw that. Even into the fourth round, they did exactly what they planned to do, and they locked it down. It was big. It was huge. It's exactly, I think, what they needed in this season after last week. But, look, we got that one right. We got that prediction right. We'll take that. We'll walk with it. Production in the bin. Who are they? Well, I mean, we've got one match to go through. What are your thoughts so far on the night so far?
Okay, it has been plentiful in some of the surprises and some of the unusual picks, and I'm looking forward to the very last one because, look, I think Scorpions versus AX is going to be juicy no matter who ends up coming out the victor, because on one side you have Scorpions that need the redemption like a breath of fresh air, similar to how it was for Panthers. They need to come back from an absolute rut. For Action X, they want to continue their role. They want to continue their momentum and performance, and this is going to be a perfect opportunity to do so.
Well, Cthulhu, it is rapidly approaching at the moment. Right now, we throw it to a break. We are going to be coming back to an absolute heater in the South Sydney Scorpions, taking on the Adelaide Action X to close out the evening. It's going to be wild. I'm absolutely here for it. We'll see you guys back soon.
Season 10 of Battle Pass, the first of many seasons in 2023, starts at the end of February. Over 3 chapters, the following tankers await you. Sandro Mancini, a lucky veteran who's ready for everything, will be in his Rinoceronte in the Knicks' progressive style. A polyglot with the knowledge of 8 languages named Emil Kittel, plus his mouse in the Wüstenschiff style. Rebecca Holmberg, the best spy in covert operations, will command her UDAS 1516 in the Svadilfari style. These commanders are very different, but what unites them is one goal and one common story that you will discover during the season. What's more, all 3 are ready to lead you through endless sands and onto rewards. Most rewards are familiar, but there are also new ones, like bounty hardening, for example. It'll help you survive not only under the scorching sun, but also in the hottest of battles. In the Items for Points section of the in-game store, you will find styles from Battle Pass Seasons 7 and 9. And don't forget about the Items for Tokens section of the in-game store as well. First and foremost are Tier 9 vehicles, of course. And there are additions to their ranks. The sturdy and confident BZ-58-2 with a powerful gun and reliable armor. The Kampfpanzer III Project 07HK with 2 firing modes. It's menacing and effective in whichever mode it uses. Here's another new, important feature that will appear in the middle of the season. Collections are where you will be able to see all your gathered customization elements from all seasons, starting with Season 10. You can get up to 3 additional tokens for collecting these elements. A reward decal and secret materials that will uncover the details of the story of 3 commanders will also be available. More details about collections will come later. And for now, stay tuned. Collect rewards, learn all the secrets of the desert, and fight in style. Onslaught is back, Commanders. A new season is coming in April, and it's called the Crimson Griffin. It will be a continuation of the previous season of Onslaught and will carry on the traditions of the competitive mode. We plan to test some new game mechanics and introduce a few changes this season before the launch of the next one in the fall. Let's take a look at what's new. The main mode rules remain the same. 7v7 clashes in Tier 10 vehicles using roll skills and capturing points of interest. So generally speaking, everything sounds familiar. However, a number of changes aimed at making Onslaught even more diverse and interesting await you this season. Some of them will be actively tested and might remain in the mode permanently. One such feature, modifiers. Modifiers are special tools that change some vehicle parameters within Onslaught. This is a great opportunity for players to diversify their usual vehicle selection, roll out in interesting but forgotten vehicles, and try out some new winning tactics. 2 modifiers will be added to Onslaught during the common test. They will change vehicle hit points as well as the cooldown time of consumables. They might stay in the mode after testing, but it will depend on the data gathered from the common test, and of course, player feedback. So if players don't like the modifier mechanic, it won't be introduced. If they think it's interesting, however, it will definitely see the light of day in the upcoming season.
Coming back in after the break, of course, in Cthulhu in the home stretch. Our final matchup of the evening is promising to be an exciting one. Electric, even some would say. It is, of course, South Sydney Scorpions taking on Adelaide Action X. And again, looking back, historically this split already, things have been turned on their heads just a little bit. Last week, the Scorpions fell prey to the Matildas, whereas Adelaide Action X walked away with a victory. Does it potentially happen again for the Scorpions, do you reckon?
Oh, look, I'm not too sure on that one. This is looking to be still a very close contention. That's what I definitely can say for a fact. I think both Action X and the Scorpions rosters are very able here. They will be able to really give us one of the closer matchups that we could ask for, really. And seeing as things looked quite electrical before, this one could be yet another banger of a game day for Scorpions. Look, updated roster photos and those jerseys looking mighty crispy.
They are. They're looking absolutely fire, and I have to say this roster does encompass probably one of my favourite personal players in the Prem League, in Benny. The guy just has that wow factor. He brings something special to the player cams as well. But on the whole, this roster has been such a solid one over the last couple of seasons. Unfortunately, they haven't quite been able to topple the Sentinels, but I mean, they headed into playoffs with wasn't it first seed last season?
I believe they were. No, wait, that would be the second season going in. Second.
No, last season they went into playoffs in first seed. They just managed to hop Sentinels at the very end of it.
That's true. That's the one. Yeah. Look, Scorpions. They still looked pretty solid. Even back at LAN at the finals in Fortress Melbourne, they were just this close to being able to claim victory. I mean, remembering the sheer amount of support as well that they had from some of their families and friends as well coming over was absolutely huge. And I mean, the Scorpions roster, by the way, the only one that actually went completely unchanged throughout multitude of the seasons. So this is the one big thing that they have going for themselves, is they already solidified all of the chemistry and everything. It's just about cleaning up some of the small mistakes, smaller acts, and the fact that they started introducing Benny on a much more frequent basis to the core roster has been a great change for them.
And of course, I mean, that LAN final is just around the corner. Cthulhu, May 27th, and the new spiffy Fortress Sydney as well on the cards. And there you go, Adelaide Action X on your screen. Coming in last week in the bottom middle, CJ, topping the fantasy leaderboard. And I mean, these guys have this aura around them of being those wild cards. We even saw it last season, that power to just pull out the magnificent showing and upset anytime they need to.
Absolutely. So, I mean, remembering what we've, myself and Elfish highlighted last week, I mean, last season, the introduction of tracks to the roster did absolute bits to Action X. They managed to go from zero to hero very quickly. They were one of the few teams that were able to absolutely consistently push some of the plays. And then you now have the introduction of Lightning Man, of Rowandy, of Ravi back into the fray. Ravi coming back from the old Bulldogs roster as well. Lightning Man coming back as well to PL. Rowandy being traded out from Sentinels. Now you have a very scary roster of Action X that on paper, they can be a very, very solid, no matter which players you put in and out. The one interesting thing here is the lack of CJ on the Action X roster. But once again, each and every one of those players is still able to call, and I'm still quite keen to see them perform. But once again, this is going to be 3 for 3 of me missing out on one or the other player in the fantasy.
Well, to quote Twitch chat, El Caster, unfortunately.
El Caster.
Yeah, look, there's only so much you can do coming into a competition where teams have 7-man rosters. Even just picking your fantasy team's a bit of a gamble, trying to figure out who's going to be playing, who's not. Then you got to roll the dice. Unfortunately, Cthulhu, you got to roll the dice. And I mean, coming into this matchup, Action X versus the Scorpions, you've got Adelaide Action X. They picked up a win week 1. And then, of course, the Scorpions suffering that last week, as well at the same time, same evening. And we've got Knight, Russian, JT, Aussie, and Raspberry taking the field for the Scorpions tonight. No Benny, it's a shame. But look, the possibilities. I'm a little cut now too because I had Napalmer down in my fantasy roster. He's not playing, so look, it looks like we're both useless.
Yeah, both useless in the fantasy, but I suppose we'll leave that to the big guns, the big man. There we go.
What has Ravioli started? Come on.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Ravioli, please do continue doing what you're doing. You absolute phenomenal human being. But yeah, look, I'm keen to see this. First of all, for Scorpions, this is a lineup that can do absolute wonders. I mean, you put Aussie on something like a CS or even a Batchat, Russian in something like a 50B, you get the rest of the roster that could do absolute bits. And the lineup of the maps, my God, this is a dream time really to be alive, because between Action X and Scorpions to go on Runeberg and Himmelsdorf, 2 close quarters maps, but one does allow a little bit more of a field play. This is going to be phenomenal, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to this.
And of course, Cliff decided we've seen it once tonight. Runeberg coming into this, and Himmelsdorf. What do you reckon? Do we get another tiebreaker tonight, or is it just going to be regulation, lock it out, done and dusted?
I'm kind of feeling another tiebreaker to be on our hands here, Panda. I kind of feel like both teams could really have those 1-1 scenarios on both maps, and from there on we could go to Cliff to sort of figure out what's the dealio, what's the go, how can both of the teams really fare on what is a bit of an oldie now map. Scorpions will probably have a little bit more of the experience on such map like Cliff, especially against teams like Sentinels. But look, no matter who wins out, no matter which team wins, I know for a fact I'll be enjoying this in full, because Runeberg, I've been eyeing out that map for a while. It has been part of the map pool as well a long time ago. So now back into the spicy one.
Yeah, look, my only recollections of this map is you saying, "Don't sit there, you moron," because you're going to get shot. And then I got shot, of course. But I mean, just thinking about Cthulhu, you and I missing out on the fantasy with the players that we wanted. I wonder, maybe next season, do we all, see if we can organise the Super Week, get all 7 players in for a week and just see how things go. Absolute chaos. Let it thrive, but we're into it. Runeberg on the cards. Action X on the attack to start things off. And Scorpions, obviously, on the other side of that coin in the defense. I mean, everything. It looks pretty stock standard across the board.
Yeah, look, stock standard indeed. Yeah, Roman, unfortunately getting a bit of a nudge from Trax there for a brief moment. But look, yeah, I think the main play here, interestingly enough, is actually going to be around the field. Action X not really wanting any sort of play around the city, which could actually be the end of them crossing out this. This is a very audacious turnout, and they fell right into the trap of Scorpions.
That's going to hurt. That is going to be big bleed there for Action X. I mean, it's not the end of the world. They've still got plenty of health and 5 players still alive, but Unfortunately, they don't return any. Donga Lord as well, going to cop some punishment. Gloucester sending shots, but all of them going wide at the minute. And you can see they're making that gamble. If they can outmaneuver here, get that position, and collapse onto the IS-4 in front of them, Knight very much isolated in the situation. But they're going to keep sending because they're going to keep going. They're just absolutely rocketed towards that 0 line. And where do they stop? What's the play? They're just feeding free damage across. There's no contest coming out of Action X so far.
Not at all, yeah. Not a lot of contest whatsoever. JT is happy to oblige on that one. And yeah, look, Knight is in, so far, a fairly comfortable position. So far, a lot of damage has been already dealt to Action X. Matter of fact, the 2k differential here. And whilst, yeah, Rowandy was able to get into a hold-down position, it doesn't really stop him from taking any more shots. Knight should be going down fairly soon. Where is Lightning Man, though, is my question here. He needs to be the one to farm up a lot of damage, but instead, actually, there's the finisher, there's the wrap-up. Rowandy will be going down in just a few seconds.
They did find the first kill on tonight. JT is low as well. Cthulhu, could Action X have just turned this around? There is a possibility that they might just find success here if they could finish off JT. Unfortunately, Donga Lord just has too many players on him right now, so there's no real way that he can finish off that kill, threading that needle, and yeah, he's going to go down. The outmatch comes in the way of Scorpions. Back to the 3 versus 3 in the health pools. You look at it, now favouring Action X once again, and Aussie is up there in the face of Gloss. He's going to be pumping out that damage. Lightning Man is just trying to send shots from range as he sits on the flag as well. Trax and Raspberry. It's isolated 1v1s at the moment. Then you've got, yeah, Lightning Man sending shots down. The small shake of the head from Gloucester saying, please no, don't end me just yet, Aussie. Come on, we can be friends, right? He's got 47 HP to Dream. He's still alive somehow, Cthulhu. Aussie, can he finish him off as Lightning Man gets involved? My God, this is chaos.
It's absolute chaos, but yeah, the overall battle between the IS-7 and the IS-4 basically shows exactly the case why the IS-4 would prevail at the end of it all. Gloucester does fall at the end of it all, but Aussie already suffered some tremendous damage, though now, well, between Trax should be finished here by Russian, and all that he can really do is just keep on running, keep on circling around, keep on playing for the hold down. Raspberry needs to fall here in basically record times without Lightning Man really trading too much damage. Trax manages to sink in one more shot into Russian before the fall. There it is. There's the finisher, 1200 for Lightning Man. Theoretically still workable, but Lightning Man needs to make sure that he's not losing any more of the HP and gets into the safety before Russian swings, because this is going to be GG if that trade continues to happen.
Oh, yeah, no, the shot from Russian, I think, yeah, it just pushes it over the line. Lightning Man needs to aggressively reposition here out of danger because Russian is going to reload. He gets the shot off, 17 HP to Dream. Oh, this is going to get close. Lightning Man, yeah, it didn't move. Gave Russian his third, but it's a 463 HP game to end. And it's such a swinging game as well. There were moments it looked like maybe Action X could have brought it back, but then the Scorpions hold down, hold fast, and my God, what a start to the series.
Banger start to the series. Though, look, a few question marks about the choice of the strategy there. Too much of a commitment, I feel, that ended up being punished in full. And I think by the time they got spotted, they could have really just gotten out with a fairly just, you know, a quick scare, maybe a couple shots that was taken onto just one of the tanks. Whereas you look at the overall performance here, look, Raspberry did phenomenally. 4k, same could be said for Lightning Man. 5k, 5.5 matter of fact, even with the loss, that's 112 points to come around for the fantasy league. So whoever did get to pick him would be absolutely, well, amazed and happy about this sort of turnout. But yeah, look, Scorpions played their cards perfectly here. Set up the trap in the park, knew exactly that the push is going to come out of that sort of A line, and from there on, that's all she wrote, really. Not much really to be said. Action X, I think, got too keen for too little of the knowledge and control over the map.
Yeah, look, I'll just sit here and take my 61.3 fantasy points from Aussie and not complain, because it could have been a lot worse in that situation. And I mean, Lightning Man, you had to feel from it. You're looking at that situation, the 1 versus 2. Given the health pools, there was a window. We've seen the 1vx clutch happen in the past. Yeah. Unfortunately, it just wasn't to be for him. And well, look, you got to make do with what you got. It's only the one round. It's not the be-all and end-all of the series. But Adelaide Action X, I mean, like you said, a lot of questions. They made that initial push up the A line. They took so much punishment for it without returning any of their own. You got to wonder if maybe even a shot in return could have turned that around.
Oh yeah, a shot would have been like an extra few shots here and there would have been phenomenal. And as well as that, I think for Lightning Man, the win condition was just not getting double tracked there, because the moment he got second track, that's it. That was the only chance and opportunity at, you know, the solution. The fact that Lightning Man was able to block the shots for so long and to not allow Gloucester to die for this long was definitely a valiant attempt. But yeah, unfortunately for him, too much damage that was taken courtesy of the IS-3, and as the finisher sort of Russian is like, you war.
I mean, the fact that Trax was able to survive for as long as he did was rather impressive as well. So, yeah, like, there were, like I said, like you said as well, moments of absolute excellence there. Unfortunately, I think it was just that an early initial bleed from Action X. I mean, I think they lost 2.5, even almost 3k health unanswered, which, I mean, if they hadn't lost that, it probably would have been a different story closing out the round. But, again, hindsight is 20/20 at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So yeah, look, this was definitely a very rough gig for Action X in their first round, but one would hope that maybe the defense, or rather, well, yeah, the defense would pan out a little bit differently for them, because for this whole matchup to really play out in full, one would want to see sort of a 1-1 sort of scoreline on Ruenberg. Then Himmelsdorf could be, you know, an absolute just, you know, damage fiesta, which I think is still going to be the case. It's more so which team would have the pressure going for them in terms of just how much rounds they need to win to either draw out the line or to win out. In terms of Scorpions right now, they got the initial start. Ruenberg so far looked pretty well read by them, so maybe this could be one of those sort of maps as the recovery for the legacy that Scorpions lost when mines were completely outed from the map pool.
Yeah, look, you got to make do, and unfortunately in an ever-changing environment around you, you have to adapt or die, unfortunately. But I mean, Cthulhu, it's crazy. It's what, final match of the season? Oh my lord, Donga, big damage off the rip. I don't quite know. Yeah, okay, it's just a contest straight up through mid. Early damage up that EF line right now, and Donga, unfortunately in that 50B, is the sufferer.
Yeah, 50B doesn't really provide a lot of armor, a lot of cover, being the high-profile tank as well. It doesn't really help. 5A against the CS and the JT on the IS-7. It's going to be a bit rough, but Trax is thankfully also there. 5A should be providing a little bit more damage output, but right now, oh my, Aussie is being melted here.
Please, if you could not kill him, that'd be great for my fantasy. Unfortunately, in a CS63, there's only so much you could do. He had to hit the hard brake so he didn't die to the impact there, the ramming. That could have been disastrous. And JT is in a right spot of trouble at the moment.
Perfect.
This is huge from Trax. He should allow Rawendi to get some shots in. And, oh, the block!
Oh, no.
The block from Aussie's dead tank. That's rough. Finally, Donga goes down, so at least the Action X crew will find some reprisal. And it feels dangerously like this is going to go the same way as that last round. Scorpions just managing to hold fast in the face of this aggression from Action X. They've taken Donga and Rawendi, so the 50B and the Wheezy 111. I think Scorpions might just have this.
Yeah, Scorpions definitely have this, it seems. For Action X, I think the core issue here was that they may have just sort of outsmarted themselves in this very case. The setup that they had was very much for a long game. Scorpion said, no, we don't want any of this noise. So we just very, very quick, very fast, and very aggressive. What was the name of the game, and that is exactly what worked out for them almost too well, really. None of that autoloader nonsense, none of those 50Bs. It's very nice stock standard IS-7s, 277s, and the SCOG plus the CS63 to boot. So this all worked out perfectly well. Gloucester is the last man to live out of the AX, and look, yeah, Ruenberg is definitely going to be upset territory here for Action X.
I'm upset territory too. Aussie died first, and around the Scorpions are going to win. No one cares. No one cares about my fantasy points. Everyone just catering to Elfish Guy. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. It's not on, okay? I'm going to be complaining to Daddy Wargaming, the man in
yes.
charge. Yeah, look, I've got his personal address. I'm going to write him out a letter and send it away tonight. But they're making absolute mincemeat of this right now. Gloucester, come on, just finish him, shoot him, just shoot him. It's not that hard. There's 3 of you and 1 of him. There you go. Thank you, Knight. Job well done. Scorpions go up 2-0 in the series. An absolute shutout in Ruinberg, and shout out to HyperX.
Shout out to HyperX indeed. Yeah, look, helping us out here on the broadcast as well. But yeah, kudos to Scorpions. Yeah, they made it almost an effortless sort of play really there from them. Whereas on the side of Action X, I'm not too
I have
sure
to say
really
though, before you carry on, shout out to Observers as well. That was clean as hell. That was very nice, very well caught. But yeah, look, again, I think much like that last round, Action X just leaves us with more questions.
Yeah, I'm not even once again, I'm not too sure what to really make of all of that, because remembering first week, absolute clinic really from them, bar, some unfortunate tech issues on the side of Panthers. But yeah, look, Ruinberg definitely is a bit of a back to the drawing board there for AX. What certainly it so far showed to us is the fact that it is quite a fast-paced map, it seems, even more so than maps like Himmels, like any other map, really. And Scorpions actually made very quick work of that. I mean, you look at that JT, Russian, Knight, all on sitting 3k plus damage. Look, sucks to suck for you with the Aussie
I don't want to talk about it, all right? I don't want to talk about none of that.
Yeah.
Look,
I suppose what we can say is L+ ratio.
Unfortunately, you got to do what you got to do. It's a team game. We can't all be magic shells and stand out and find the big fantasy numbers. Look, ultimately, Aussie, look, he did what he needed to do. They won. That's the main thing. The fact the Scorpions won the round is everything. Just because he died doesn't mean it's... I mean... Again, Action X just bleeding this early damage. Yes, that is a long angle to be taking shots from that early on in the round, but again, it was just unanswered damage. Yeah, look, absolutely, they smoked out Aussie, but the rest of the positions for Scorpions were such that they could just return it and farm.
Absolutely. So, just very quick, clean, good take. And Action X...
hold on. Production, why did we just show the one clip of Aussie getting farmed after I've talked about how much pain I'm in because of my fantasy picks? I'm writing 2 letters to the Daddy Wargaming now. This is just ridiculous. Because they're like... it is what it is. It is what it is. You got to take things in stride. And unfortunately for Action X, they've gone to take a stride, they've tripped, stumbled, broken their nose, and they find themselves in a position to have to reverse sweep going into Himmelsdorf.
Yeah, look, Himmelsdorf is going to be definitely a much rougher now venture for that
Once again.
El Caster is all that can be said. But yeah, look, I got one thing to highlight from this whole Ruinberg match. In both of the rounds, Action X ended up not really procuring a lot of ground to really play. It was either just the A-line push or the zero-line push. Nothing in between, no overall sort of control over the map. It felt just a little bit unusual, whereas you look at Scorpions, they were presented basically on a silver platter. All of the, all the riches, all of the plays and all of the positions to really play around with. And they made sure work of it very, very nicely. So, yeah, going into Himmels, look, I'm still expecting, the mouse, the E100s. Himmels is definitely going through one of those metas where the more HP you bring in, the more, or rather the higher the chance of success you will have.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see the future of Ruinberg and sort of how it plays out here in the Premier League. But Himmelsdorf, we've seen it time and time again. But right now, okay, look, nice. Now, look, Cthulhu water tanks. We've seen skins, we've seen camos, we've seen all sorts. Now you can put a hat on your tank. We're getting the new cosmetics and it's the fancy, it's the fun. But right now, Himmelsdorf, Action X on the attack. Look, last attack didn't fill me with a whole lot of hope right now, and my predictions are already in the bin. But look, the one takeaway is it's good to see Scorpions finding form.
Oh yeah, it's great to see Scorpions finding that form. It's great to see that they are back into the general swing of things. They're back to being that very scary roster that was basically present during the previous season. On the side of Action X, look, a slight deviation from the normality, introducing the T57 Heavy for that bit of extra DPM, looking to keep on pumping out the shots on a much more frequent basis. But the interesting part is the 100 and T57 are set up to receive that banana push, which Scorpions historically would be known for. But interestingly enough, well, in this case, that is not going to be the choice here. Instead, well, JT to sit at the base, whilst the whole of the Scorpions once again claiming quite a fairly big chunk of the control. And once again, in comes the push from the castle. And the question being, how well can Scorpions receive?
Yeah, and just the full send down the hill. They've got to commit to the push now, Action X, because they are so overexposed, especially with Raspberry in the position that he's in. He can look to go in for that pinch up the G line. And really upset. Donga is in the worst possible position right now. He steps out one way, he's in the line of sight of 3. If he steps back too far, there's Raspberry waiting to catch the end of him. And yeah, the shots are coming through. Dongalord, he's going to try and contest Raspberry as best he can. They're forced over into that position with Gloucester as well. They've got to come in and support him, otherwise he's just going to be absolutely farmed for free. And this Action X attack, it's they've had to pivot unexpectedly.
So once again, pincered from majority of the position. Trax needs to be there, needs to be joining the fight, because the way how Scorpions so far been organizing their plays has been an absolute clinic. Look at that damage. 1700 in a single swing is just absolutely deadly. Yes, Raspberry might fall to the swing. One more, 2 more, and that's not even a finisher. For Trax, that is a huge upset back onto a 20-second clip time. By that moment, Dongalord will fall,
Action
and well,
X,
he might fall as well.
Action X actually have a 3k health advantage right now in Cthulhu. They might have just sustained on the beefier tank line. Raspberry is literally, you sneeze on him, he's dead, which is a bit rough for a tank. It is what it is. Russian as well being contested by Rawendi. They can't finish off Raspberry, and as long as he is alive, he can keep pumping out damage, and that is a real threat that needs to be shut down. Traxon as well, trying to get in position to help shut down Russian. The shots coming in through the mag, dumping into this hefty tank. The Super Conk, it's going to survive. He misses one more shot. There you go. And they've got the outnumber. JT's low as well. Gloucester pumping out a whopping 3k damage right now. Aussie trying his best to front up to both Gloucester and Lightning Man. JT's on for the flank. If he can find it, he needs to find the side. But Cthulhu somehow, Action X have booted and rallied to come into Himmelsdorf and looking to pick up a win.
Good recovery by them, really. The way how it all looked a little bit spooky there for a brief moment where they just seemed to have lost Dongalord for basically free of charge. Certainly did not instill a whole lot of faith, but yeah, look, this is a really good wrap-up. This is a good return to form by them. Although, yeah, look, Faces of Stoicism is probably the best way to really describe right now Action X, that the battle is not over. Far from it, as a matter of fact. They're still on a verge of losing out the matchup if they lose one more round on Himmelsdorf. And that's still very much haunting them. So they right now need to clean up their act. They need to continue their performance here on Himmels. They need to make sure that now that their only redemption here is to push the cliff, win out there, and then, well, wrap it up. And even then, I believe off the back of the first 2 rounds on Runeberg, I think Scorpions might actually have the upper hand by just how quick those rounds will wrap up.
Again, Action X, it feels similar to the Ruinberg, start after round. It looked like they got themselves into a situation where they probably were going to lose out, but again, they just play their angles. They hit the shots that they need to. Trax and that T57 Heavy as well did absolute work. So I'm interested to see the numbers that he put up there in the T57 as well. And I mean, honestly, just looking at the numbers in general for that map is going to be rather interesting, especially given the damage that Gloucester was pumping out. But yeah, the possibility's still alive for Action X to keep us well suited in the predictions department.
Definitely so. Look, there's still certainly opportunities for that to happen. We're still looking at a possibility for a comeback, but again, it's still very much up in the air. You're looking at some of the performances. Look, at least Aussie managed to make a bit of a comeback there in the last one, but look, I gotta say, things still looking a little bit rough on the execution by Action X, and this has been also a very recurring issue where they always leave for some reason one of the players behind, which either ends up being a big brain idea and having the ability to farm up the absolute storm, or missing out on that one extra person in the fight, which results in the imminent loss.
Yeah, I mean, look, just again, ice in the veins there for Action X. You've just come off a very rough Ruinberg. You've lost it decisively. I say decisively. The first one was a little bit closer contested. It was down to the 1v1, but I mean, realistically, a 2-0 speaks for itself. You lost both rounds of the Ruinberg, and they come and they pulled that out. They find themselves in a rough situation, and again, they just do what they need to find themselves the win, and the possibility of them still walking away with at least the majority of the points is rather impressive, but can they do it again? That's the real question. Can they do it now on the defense?
Yeah, that's basically going to be the question here, Panda, really, because, look, Action X might have a good idea here and a decent sort of understanding of how to play Himmelsdorf, but they are playing against Scorpions, who on quite a fair few occasions were able to make Himmelsdorf their home ground as well. So the battle is far from being over, and even on the cliff, things are going to get quite rather dicey as well. So for Action X, this is going to be one of those moments where they need to really put in the full effort, not really let anything slip out of their hands, because between Scorpions and then Sentinels later down the line in the season, those two could be basically the defining games for them in terms of how deep or how close to the top positions on the seedings will they get to play in the playoffs.
I mean, that's the thing. On top of that, we're down to the single round robins. There's no double round robin. There's no chance of that redemption match later on in the season. The next chance you'd have to verse that team is in playoffs potentially, assuming that you even match up at that point. And back into Himmelsdorf for either what could be the last round of the night or the setup for the Action X reverse sweep. We'll have to see, of course, and we dive on into it. Action X on the defense. Can they keep the ice in the veins? Can they clutch up against the South City Scorpions Cthulhu? We are about to find out.
Sort of choices here from Action X. I'm eyeing out that Donga/Trax pick. Double T57 Heavy very much rings similar sort of lines as the double 50B, albeit both of those tanks would be able to sort of reload on a much quicker pace than the 50Bs. Idea is still a very sound one, but you're looking at the setup as well. Well, Scorpions have a little bit more mobility. The armor profiles of the IS-4s are still going to be troll as any time as well. But against the heats of the T-57 heavies, this could be the perfect opportunity here. Interestingly enough, that Action X are actually set up to receive the hill push rather than the park, and the position of them behind those buildings should actually be sufficient enough for that play. That will be a very dangerous as well surprise if somebody comes out driving out from the hill, but thankfully for Scorpions, that's not yet the case.
It's one of those situations you almost want to caption it. You guys forgot you play in defense, right? You look in the wrong way, but you can understand it. You look at the overall scheme of the map, you understand exactly why.
They know exactly, yeah.
It's a far more aggressive defensive setup than what we saw out of the Scorpions. They played for the pinch, they played for Raspberry being able to come up and try and come in from the back for the flank, but Action X up in the face, looking to aggress, like you said, looking to anticipate here. But right now, Scorpions just as passive. They're not overcommitting.
Yeah. Although I really like that setup from Scorpions introducing the 50B. Oh, Aussie's position actually reveals the plans of Action X here, and in comes the push for the one flag, maybe even, well, matter of fact, maybe just a flank around. No, actually, JT is looking to hold his position here against Lightning Man, where Lightning Man should have enough of the accuracy to maybe do some few of the cheeky cupola snipes, but as of now, Action X might be in a little bit of a rough position. Health pool has been equalized as Trax and Rowandy did suffer some damages here and there. Question being is how are they looking to execute their performance, because Rowandy's position is still very crucial in this play.
Yeah, I mean, there's limited support as well for JT in that position. There's only so much you can do on the one flag. It's very exposed. And all you have to do is connect the shot, reset the clock, whereas you look at two, there are so many tucked-in corners that you could play. You could set up for the crossfires. It just feels like a little bit more flexible. But JT, look, he is, unfortunately going to be reset there by Gloucester. He thought he was tucked in and safe. Unfortunately, Action X pulled out the oldest trick in the book, which is just bring a friend, unfortunately for Scorpions, and that is going to be the downfall of this plan. He's looking to stack that time up once again. There is time to make it happen, but there's a lot of posturing going on.
A lot of posturing, yeah, definitely a good point here. Though, look, Action X still might be able to keep the ball rolling, but Russian now coming up onto Gloucester. That is going to be a very yummy amount of damage that could be unloaded here from that clip damage. That 50B, that French tank, can be an absolute menace, and unless spotted preemptively, could mean a lot of problems, especially for that E100. Right now, though, I'm looking at the positioning of the Action X. I'm not too sure what to really make of it, because with T57 Heavy still being, or both of them still being present, the IS-4 of Lightning Man, oh no, not Lightning Man, pardon me, Rowandy needs to really fall back. Action X are trying to keep this fluid, but with Scorpion's continuous pressure, this could be a nightmare, really, for Action X very quickly, specifically for Gloucester here.
And the play reveals itself. They're going to go for that hard push into Gloucester, and Lightning Man try and cut him off and allow JT to just work the clock on that one hill right now. And there you go. It's revealed.
Rough.
Gloucester being collapsed on the AMX 50B going to town, and this E100. Poor Gloucester stuck out in the open. Not going to be able to get to any real cover, and Russian and Knight will tag teaming with Aussie there at the back lines to support. The reset does come through. Actually, no, not even a reset. JT's just given up the hill. They're going to go for the all-out brawl right now. They want to fight this one out with Action X, and Aussie, he's going to have to wrap around, try and keep himself. Once again, how is it the one guy I pick is just getting murked repeatedly by the Scorpions? I'm cursed. I'm not picking anyone else. They just can't afford it right now. But a 4 versus 4 Cthulhu, JT, having bled as much HP as he has, is limited in what he can do in this fight. That's a real dangerous prospect in the overall health pool.
The 50B also peeks around the corner. Lightning Man taking a lot of damage here, which could mean a whole lot of problems. He's the anchor player here. He needs to make sure to keep up the front. Ignite from Raspberry is not going to be doing it any better here as well. The T-57's heavy need to make sure that they are unloading and realizing their full potential in terms of damage. JT needs to fall here as well. Russian as well, all fully reloaded. This is farmlands for Scorpions, and they should be able to wrap it all up with a nice bow tie as well.
The health bar, there is, well, now 600 to work with for Action X. If they can get the reloads off, they might just turn this one around. JT's low. They can finish him. Rowendi still surviving, but there you go. Finding it to be shut down. Tracks at Donga. It's down to the 2 versus 2. The health pool is almost even. Donga needs to go absolutely nuclear here. There they go. It's down to the 2 versus 1. They just need to pump damage now, Cthulhu. Oh no. The ricochet, the bounce. That's truly unfortunate, but Trax is going to sit there in front line. Pump out the damage on the Raspberry. They might have just done the work needed. Donga Lord here with a 600 HP advantage. The IS-4 versus the T-57. Dong is just rotating. He's running. He can't quite play this heads up.
Yeah, Donga still has the opportunity here to really make the play. Raspberry, if he sinks the shot into Donga here, that is also still going to hurt. Donga needs to make sure that he has the ground to really play around with around the clip. Minute and a half to go, though, still. Is going to be damaging.
That's
it! Split screen. Thank you, production. This is great right now, actually, because now it's a bit of a ring around the rosy. Now Donga manages to actually sink a shot. This is great, because Donga actually didn't take any shots of damage, and now the eyes fall on the reload.
But because regardless of the situation, the clock is there for Action X. Donga just has to keep playing ring around the rosy. He doesn't want to take a fight. Action X might have just done it here. He's got to keep going for a minute, Cthulhu, or just keep pumping in the damage. The health, it's just dwindling. Donga's been found. Raspberry is down by about 400. Donga needs to get out of there. Donga needs to run, but the damage pump is going. Raspberry bounces one more. 400 HP. One more shot in from Donga. Might just do it here, Cthulhu. He's going to start running again. 30 seconds. Somehow, this might be doable for the Donga Lord himself. He's just going to keep going. Keep running. Don't stop for a second. One more shot each and it could be over. Donga turns. Does he burn? Raspberry hot on his heels. Come on. You can do it, Donga. One more shot through, but no. Raspberry ices up and clutches.
A heartbreak and a half there for Donga as well. He had the shot, nearly had the intra-clip, and it was the ramming damage that was the conclusion of it all. Look, yeah, there it is. Well, I suppose Scorpions as well, showcasing here that you just don't doubt them at all, and they just come out with a win like that.
My heart goes out to Donga. I mean, in that situation, opportunity presents. You just wanted him to be able to pull it off, and unfortunately, that is not the way it goes. Scorpions take the series at a 3-1. It was impressive stuff. That was great tanks to be watching from both Action X and the Scorpions. But look, ultimately, at the end of the day, there has to be a winner. There has to be a loser. Unfortunately for Action X, they come out the losers in this matchup.
Absolutely. So yeah, look, still well played by Scorpions. Look, their Runeberg has been absolutely just stunning to mention. And on the side of Scorpions, look, once again coming out with an absolute heater after an upsetting turnout in week 1. They've done superbly here, and once again showing why teams should be afraid and not treat Scorpions lightly. But look, I gotta still give kudos. Action X nearly managed to make it work. The T57 heavies just needed to have had a little bit more HP to be supplemented with. Maybe the EE100 would have been the better choice instead of the IS4. But even then, those are all theories at this point. And look, for Action X, no points at all going into the conclusion of week 2, which will be pushing them down quite firmly into the middle of the pack.
I mean, look, it's not the end of the world. At the middle of the pack, still a great position to potentially make that run towards the top of the table and the round out of the single round robin. But honestly, look, first week back, doing some tanks on the casting desk now. I'm loving it. It's been a great time, Cthulhu. The Action X Scorpions matchup to round out the evening, just icing on the cake.
Absolutely. So yeah, look, it's been a heater set off 2 weeks already, with upsets being left, right, and center. First week was the upset by the Matildas 2 times now, matter of fact. The 2 times upset team managed to really make it work. First time it was against the Scorpions, next time it was against the Sentinels. Look, from here on out, we might actually see the new challenger for the top positions.
Oh, look, again, you wanted it to fall Action X as well. Honestly, I did. I wanted it to fall Action X as well. I would have loved a Cliff to round out that series because I mean, both teams showcased some insane tanks play. And you're coming down to this, like, just the setup down. It was just number by number, player by player, falling. And you're down to the 2 versus 1. And then Donga and Raspberry in the 1 versus 1 playing Ring Around the Rosie. Donga just running for his life, trying to play the clock, play that win condition. And right here, you can see just, Donga wishes that he had a round ready to go. And the 2 HP, not enough to survive the ram from Raspberry. And you look at it, just the pop off. And Russian can't even believe it. Raspberry went absolutely huge in that final round.
Oh yeah, Raspberry coming out big with that sort of ram. It all worked out just perfectly there. And I mean, what more could you ask for a cleanup play on Runeberg and then Himmelsdorf being shut down before any more damage could have been dealt? Look, for Scorpions, this is the perfect scenario.
I mean, it is. You love to see it. It was great tanks at the end of the day, and it really just rounded out what was a pretty spectacular day on the whole. So, look, it's great fun. I love being here. I love tanks. I love ANZ tanks as well. They always know how to put on a show. So, I mean, look, yeah, unfortunately we didn't get the Cliff, but you're not always going to get the tiebreaker. You're not always going to get that high-stakes matchup. You make do with what you got. You move forward. And for the Scorpions, it is that opportunity at redemption. Cthulhu, you asked for what more we could have. I've got it. We've got Raspberry here for a chat after what was an insane clutch up against the Dongalord. Raspberry, run us through it. Dongalord's running, you're chasing, you're running around the same building. Did you think it was going to go your way in the end?
I mean, could have, at the end of the day, could have gone either way, but I just knew if I believed in myself, would have been fine, and clear it was, even though I literally missed 2 shots.
Yeah, look, definitely had us a bit there on the edge of our seats. But look, after what was quite a upsetting for you guys turnout in week 1, you had the opportunity then to play on Runeberg. What was the sort of the vibes going into week 2, seeing as Action X were looking fairly solid, but obviously week 2 didn't pan out the same way how week 1 panned out for them.
I think the reason why is like every season we have our special map. I mean, last season was proc, and as we can see from week 1, clearly we've got some work to do, and I think maybe this season Ruin might be our new home.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Raspberry in the player cams, we got to see that, you know, sun's out, guns out, you and Rush and giving us the flex, and you got the fancy new. Is that sort of, you know, is that the secret to team cohesion? Is getting in a good workout, making sure that you're pumped and ready to go for a matchup?
I think it might be. You know, everyone's hitting the gym, getting buff.
I mean, look,
prepped for LAN.
you got to make sure you're rocking up to LAN like an absolute unit. But Raspberry, congratulations! What a way to close out the series. You guys looked absolutely on fire. We'll hand it over to you. Is there anyone you'd like to shout out?
Let's go Russian.
I mean, look, he did bits tonight. Raspberry, look, congratulations. A big win for you and the Scorpions. We'll let you head off and celebrate with the lads.
Thanks. See you later.
Oh, Cthulhu, what a way to do it. What a way to round out Playday 2 of Split 1 of 2023. The Scorpions putting on a show, guys. It was some great tanks across the board. But, I mean, how do we improve from here? You're looking at games like this in week 2. We've still got more round robin to play.
Absolutely. Look, there's still quite a lot of talking points to really note down now that, you know, Action X suffered a very unfortunate for them turnout. Now it sort of puts a question as to, well, where do they now fare in their current state, in their current lineup? How will Sentinels be able to, you know, keep their maybe dynasty or legacy at this point, really? And at which point do Matildas stop is probably the biggest one for me. At which point which position by the end of the round robin do we see them in? Because after 2 weeks so far of, I gotta say, very, very convincing performances, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season.
Yeah, look, when do we stop playing World of Tanks and we start playing Duck Hunt? Because at least until then, you're not taking them down. Let's have a look back at the evening and how things played out here in week 2. Of course, the results might surprise you at the end of the day, Cthulhu. For some, it was a great start to the evening. The Melbourne Matildas taking down the North Sydney Sentinels. An absolute nail-biter on Cliff there, getting it in the tiebreaker. The Perth Panthers got some revenge from last week, taking down the Wellington Wolverines in a 4-0. And, of course, we just witnessed the South Sydney Scorpions denying the chance of a reverse sweep against Adelaide Action X. It was a great night. Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's been a phenomenal night packed with absolutely solid action and some really good rivalries being started up. I mean, the Matildas run being continued, the Perth Panthers back on their feet, same as the Scorpions. Action X sort of feeling 1 week like they're on top of the world, next day they're in the bin. So I'm not too sure as to what to really make of it. And then there's also the Wolverines with some of the more unusual sort of strats and picks, which I'm oddly enough still, well, not still, but I'm looking forward to what's next being brewed up in the lab.
Well, you talk about being in the bin and what's next. Let's get it over and done with. Let's have a look at the predictions and see where we, as the on-screen talent, currently sit. I'm glad I'm not in the graphic. It's Elfish, remember? It's Elfish guy on the graphic.
Yep,
Whatever you see, it's Elfish. He's the one that's suffering right now. And, well, Cthulhu, it is not looking great at the moment in terms of the Elfish actually did get that Scorpions pick right, so I suppose props to him. Whereas production, back where they rightfully deserve to be, in the bin. They got the last two absolutely wrong. But Cthulhu, how much does it surprise you that the only tip that you got right tonight was the Panthers versus Wolverines?
Honestly, to a certain degree, I'm still happy about the surprises, because unlike Elfish, who's only all about the numbers, I'm here for the stories. I'm here for the rivalries. I'm here for all the action. And say, for example, for the first pick, look, I went with what was on paper a safe pick. Well, and sometimes, the safe picks don't really work out. Same goes for Action X. Look, maybe I think I got a little bit too over my head with the pick, and obviously forgetting that the Scorpions are still a scary entity. They're the ones that came in second at the end of the last season, and there's a very solid reason why they kept on pushing the envelope back in the last season, the season before that, and all the seasons prior to those. So, look, I think it's just... for me, I was on... I guess I was a non-believer in some of the teams, and that's where I got punished.
Boo you. Yeah, you can't be pulling that up. Look, Cthulhu, let's get to the numbers that really matter, though. Let's have a look at the overall standings at the conclusion of Play Day 2 and see just how things are fleshing out right now. Would you believe it? The Melbourne Matildas topping the table, having picked up everything that they possibly could have wanted. The Sentinels stuck in second, unfortunately, on 4 points. The Scorpions, Action X, and Panthers all tied up at 3. Which is, again, an interesting situation to be in. Who would have thought, unfortunately, the Wellington Wolverines yet to get themselves points on the leaderboard. Cthulhu, at the start of the split, would this have been where you thought these teams would have been sitting at the conclusion of the second play day?
Not at all, really. This is definitely quite a curious development here. I'll say this, Panda, with Scorpions only just now getting on board for the points. Obviously, with the shorter season as well, each and every win and loss will matter even more. But with Matildas, with them now getting rid of both of the Scorpions and Sentinels, now they get to face Action X, Panthers, and Wolverines from here on out. And unless something goes horrifically wrong, they should continue keeping up their first place at this point.
Yeah. Look, it is an interesting time, Cthulhu. I have some bad news for you. Guess who is the lowest of the 3 on the fantasy leaderboard right now?
Myself.
It is you in the bin. Alfish as well, dropping 12 places, so we take that as well at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Man disappears for 2 weeks and he's at the bottom. He's dropped 12 places, as it should be. But look, let's carry on, Cthulhu. Of course, the Tanks is not done. There is more to come. Of course, back on Monday for some more ANZ Tanks action with the B League. It's going to be another exciting day here in our little corner of the world. Good news, Cthulhu. I'm back. I'm going to be jumping on the B League for a bit of fun. We'll be running through it. You're not. We'll have to coordinate. Maybe get you down there. We'll run the show again. But look, B League is going to be carrying on week 2 on Monday. The Hawthorn Hellcats take on the Bundaberg Badgers. Match 2, Brisbane Bulldogs versus the Auckland Archers. And then rounding it out, it's going to be the Canberra Centurions taking on the Lismore Leopards. And I mean, Cthulhu, having seen just what happens when B League players jump up in the Prem League, that should be an exciting night.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I'm still very much looking forward to the plays. Hellcats, look, I'm still keen to see how will they be able to perform against the Badgers. Same goes for Lismore Leopards, as they could really put in a bit of an upset, though Centurions could really still put quite the dent into that performance. And, well, obviously for Brisbane Bulldogs as well, they should have a very interesting matchup, I reckon, against Auckland Archers.
And if you're not done slating your thirst for World of Tanks, there is actually more action on tonight with Japanese League. They're looking to get things underway for week 2 tonight. The Hokkaido Foxes taking on the Tokyo Crows. The Fukuoka Bulls, got to get that one right, versus the Yokohama Sharks in the second matchup. And then the Osaka Krakens taking on the Nagoya Thunderbirds to round out the evening. And look, again, we're going to have a talk with someone, Cthulhu, because there ain't no way Japan gets such banging names. and we aren't allowed to have a bit of fun with that as well. To be fair, look, we got some pretty solid names as well, but I'm sure we could just elevate it a little bit, surely.
Absolutely. So surely we get to elevate it all. Surely, we get some even more action later down the line. I'm still keen to see the JPL versus ANZPL clash. Maybe that is something that could happen, in the future. But
who do we have to call? Come on, surely we can make that one happen. But Cthulhu, for us here in the ANZ Prem League, week 2, we are looking to round things out, of course. But next week, we're back. You and I are back once again. The Blue Thulu Power Hour does not end. We're going to be back next Friday to kick things off with the Melbourne Matildas taking on the Adelaide Action X. Unfortunately, week 3 does not get much better for the Wellington Wolverines as they have to face down against the South Sydney Scorpions, and then rounding it out, 2 teams looking to climb their way up the leaderboard. It's the North Sydney Sentinels taking on the Perth Panthers. If you had to call one, which match is your match to watch next weekend?
Hands down, Melbourne Matildas versus Action X. The one big matchup that I think Melbourne Matildas could still be contested on for Action X. This is a chance for the recovery, but a very, very difficult one. whilst that is for Matildas, this is the huge chance to continue their absolute domination so far. For Wolverines, look, this is going to be a bit of a rough one. Same goes for the Sentinels versus Panthers. For those two matchups, I feel like there's fairly set sort of outcomes, but look, there's still opportunities for the upsets, and I'm looking forward for those.
You always look forward to the underdog story, the upsets, that dark horse coming into a competition. But for ANZ Cthulhu, we are done and dusted. We'll be sending it on over to Japan to kick off their week 2, and it should be an absolute hit. I know I'll be checking it out. But for us tonight, we'll see you next week. Have a good one. Stay safe.
내가 훨씬